Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I am here today with Scott Perez. And Scott, I didn't get your bio this morning. Sorry, there was too much going on. So crazy.
Sure, no
So I'm
problem.
going to ask you to introduce yourself. I know you have a very illustrious bio. I tried to open it just now, but there's too many things on my desktop. So if you don't mind, please do give yourself some background and then we'll launch into actually any topics you'd like to discuss.
Okay, sure. Um, my name is Dr. John S. Perez. I was born in Tampa, Florida. I'm in Tampa, Florida now. And just to give you a little background of where I come from and my history, my dad was in the 3rd Missile Battalion with General MacArthur. Nuclear missiles and sarin gas missiles built by Werner von Braun. Okay. Um, my father traveled around with General MacArthur. It was his bodyguard, traveled around with M4 carbine on military transport. His brother worked with Werner von Braun in the caves on guidance systems and warheads. So, when my father got out of the military, he raised me. He disciplined me. Let's put it that way. He raised me rough. So, my father was in the marine business, ships, tugs, barges. I grew up working on the docks, and that was my incentive to get an education. So, um, some people have it easy in life. I never did. But I'm very grateful for my upbringing and my family. I have a lot of military in my family. My father was TS Black. My uncle was TS Black. So I went to
What does
Mercer.
that mean? TS what?
TS Black is top secret black.
Oh, all right.
That was they were top secret black level. My
Okay.
father there were no nuclear codes. He had the Honest John. This is before NASA. So he had the Honest John rockets, and he was in West Germany, aimed at Berlin. And there were no nuclear codes. They had live rockets. They had a mission in the Cold War. This is 1958, just to paint a picture before NASA. So I have ties to some of these things that are I have ties to a bunch of people that you've interviewed and people that you know um, or know about. So I
Okay,
chose
but
to go to
so why don't you tell us about you?
yes. So that's the reason I chose to go to school is because I didn't want to work on the docks all my life, and I saw kind of what my dad went through. My uncle did have a PhD, worked for Honeywell after that. So I went to Mercer University on a baseball scholarship. I played Division 1 SEC baseball and the WAC conference, and I was drafted by the Pirates, but I went to Mercer. I had a scholarship there. I had walk-ons to the University of Florida and Alabama, and I played baseball, but I was pre-med, so it was a big challenge for me because you're traveling around in a bus, you're playing baseball. It's hard to do your labs. It's like you're Mercer's in Macon, Georgia. You're there 3 days a week, and so you're missing labs. It gets very hard. So by the second year, I decide that I'm not going to play baseball anymore. And due to a lot of illness in my family, which is the reason I was pre med, I changed my major to chemistry from biology pre med to chemistry. And when I did, my advisor became a guy named Dr. Robert Hargrove. Dr. Robert Hargrove is now a retired Captain Level 6 full bird, and he is my mentor, Ollie North level, and he advised George Bush Sr. in the Gulf War. Okay, so he he's an expert in organic chemistry, and chemical warfare weapons, toxicology, and all of these things. I didn't know some of the things that were going on when I was at Mercer. I was just a student there, and there was also Dr. Crawford. He was a colonel in the U.S. Army, and so I'm mentored by these people
Okay.
in the curriculum there, but I have access to things like radioactive materials from Oak Ridge, Savannah River plant, those kind of things. So I was mentored in that program. I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry. Um, I'm an expert in all of the areas and disciplines, all of the physics, all of the quantum mechanics, all of it. The physical chemistry teacher, this is just a book right here. This person, Carl Garland, is one of the most famous MIT physical chemistry professors of all time. His daughter, Leslie Garland, taught me. And believe me, she taught me. It was a very difficult program. It was a very challenging program. It was the kind of program where it was a private school where I saw the sun rise a lot, and I saw people fail out of school. It was very challenging. And when you're done with this program, you don't graduate just because you finish the coursework and go do all the tests. After that, Hargrove made it where you had to take a GRE exam and perform in the top 20 percentile for the GRE exam in chemistry, or you don't graduate. It doesn't even matter if you have straight A's. And so I think I was fortunate. I finished that early. But for me, it was not easy. So I worked very hard there. But Hargrove, who's been a mentor and a friend forever, propelled me. He propelled me into graduate school. Um, I had a bunch
Okay.
of options, okay, of where I could go to graduate school. I was accepted in a number of schools. I chose to go to the University of Nebraska Lincoln, and that was in 1991. I chose to go there. I had a teacher assistant scholarship for the first year, so I had to teach. I got to teach some cool people like Trev Alberts, who was a student of mine, um, in biochemistry, and mainly labs is what you teach there. And then after your first year, you start taking these board exams, and then you pick in that program, you pick what field you want to go into. So you have a little bit of textbook work, and then you go straight into a laboratory, which is it's like a job. You show up every day and you work there. And so you are taught. It's just like being a freshman all over again. You know, it's there's no free ride. So you go into a lab. I chose my professor, and the reason that I chose my professor uh, was because of all the illness in my family. A lot of people died of cancer. I buried a senior friend of mine who died of type 1 diabetes in a car accident when he was a senior in high school, when I was a sophomore more at Mercer. I have all this illness in my family. So I decided to go into cancer and aging. And I go into this lab. Little did I know that my professor had kicked out 5 South Koreans before me and gave me the project they said they all got kicked out on. The chairman of the department was a Samsung fellow, and he was bringing in South Korean military, and they were being trained in chemical warfare weapons in Alabama, and also being trained in different areas, biological and whatnot, at University of Nebraska. So he brought in these South Koreans. Um, this was what I wanted to do. I was determined to do it, very determined. But I'm from Florida, so I they made fun of me a lot. People from Wisconsin and Minnesota, because they come in my apartment, it was 80 degrees. There was a blizzard outside, and they were wearing all these. I'm like, I'm used to Florida. I wore long johns 24/7 the first winter until my blood thickened up, and then I could, wear a t-shirt and a jacket and jeans. But it was very cold for me until I adapted. All right. So my professor, Dr. Carolyn Mary Price, whom I don't have much. I don't have very nice things to say about her. Um, she did a postdoc in Tom Check's lab at UC Boulder. He's a 1989 Nobel laureate in RNA self-splicing, and I had the good fortune of working with Carol Greider, 2009 Nobel laureate, Elizabeth Blackburn, 2009 Nobel laureate, and several other Nobel laureates that I met in different areas and different disciplines. I very much liked the program there, but I didn't get along with my professor. So there was a lot of turbulence in that entire program. And it's unfortunate.
Okay. Now, I mean, it sounds like you have a very illustrious academic career. Can we cut to the chase a bit, just so we can kind of talk about what you're going to talk about? So can you encapsulate the rest of your academic career
Yes,
and
yes, yes, yes.
okay.
So the important thing there to realize is that I cloned 3 genes. I have been to 3 PCRs. I was at the beginning of computer technology is integral to the sciences and the evolution of the sciences. So I was in the beginning of the internet. I was in the beginning of advanced recombinant DNA programming and coding, and DNA is a language. So I learned all of those skills outside of the textbook. So you go through all these programs and their boundaries in the indoctrination. That's the first problem. You're in boundaries and you're in textbooks. Then when you go into a lab and you do the work, it's a whole different ballgame. There's failure. So in the first week you're there, they're teaching you, hey, you're gonna fail. So that first year was miserable failure for me. But those are the skills. I built core facilities. I had access to things like Silicon Graphics Iris Tower, $250,000 with 3D not 8 knobs, 3D glasses. You know, in the beginning, GenBank version 1, Oligo 1. My PI had she ran the Oligo lab. I built a core facility there for computing. So I leveraged computing. I started, by the way, I didn't mention, I started with video games at age 10 and hardcore, like, the Atari 100, Apple IIe, all of those things. So I started programming back there. By the
Okay.
time I got there, I was already coding. And I use that. So I helped build NIH facilities to publish papers in all these journals like Nature's and Science and do all these elaborate things in crystallography. I on my PhD committee was a crystallographer. There was a $4 million 4-circle diffractometer up on the next floor, and he had all the silicon graphics computers, the DEC alphas, all of that. We had a fiber ring there. We were one of the 4 Archie servers in the world. This is all at the beginning of the World Wide Web and all of that. A side job that I had was with a company called DEC Futures that was part of JC Bradford, and they had an extreme amount of computers. I was just their advisor. That was they had a seat on the New York Stock Exchange, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, San Francisco Exchange. So I had exposure to that as a side job. It was kind of, starving student eating out of a can type of thing, but that was my side job. So I had a heavy, heavy exposure to computing and to recombinant DNA programming of beings. Okay. Beings in the form of my most of my work was done in E. coli. The cancer research platform was done in ciliates in the beginning. And we are talking programming of beings. So um, that is that environment. When I came out of there were no jobs when I came out. So where did I go? I went right back to the port. Well,
Ah,
I I went really to Sarasota and did water analysis for 6 months, and then I went back to the port and worked for Amalie Motor Oil and worked in labs. And I was like, I'm not making any money here. I'd already was dating my wife, and I'm like, I need to kind of evolve. I spent all this time going to school, and I'm working for peanuts, driving back and forth to Sarasota 120 miles a day, working in a wet lab doing metal analysis on drinking water was, you know, it was destroying my car, and I wasn't making any money. Then I moved in the port. I wasn't making any money. So I started looking for ads, and I went to this, I read in the newspaper in the classifieds there was a job. So I went over here to the Hyatt, and I met a guy, and I'm going to be very careful with some of the names as we go through this, because I don't need to get sued for slander or in any trouble. I don't need any visits from anybody, but I'm prepared for them. So I meet this guy named Jack K, and he's in a room, and I go in the room, and he interviews me, and I talk to him about, hey, look, I've done all this computer work. I wrote all this software for Amalie and did all these things. It's my background. And he offers me a job on the spot, making a lot more money. Little did I know I was being hired into a dark program by CIA to build the encryption for the United States military.
okay.
So in the room next door to me, I did not know that John Deutsch and some other folks are watching me while they're asking questions. So the phone rings, and he picks the phone up, and he's talking to people in the room next door. I learned this later. Okay. I did not know that was going on. They asked me what I knew about wares and hacking. and, and I proceeded to tell them how to hack software from Silicon Valley, specifically Sierra Online. Okay. And then the phone rang again. Apparently, the people I heard in the room next door nearly fell out of their chair. Okay, so I went into that company. The name of the company was called Digital Secured Networks. It was a group of people from Brookhaven National Laboratory and the accelerator there,
Okay.
as well as several people from different military disciplines, one of which went to Area 51, clean up radioactivity, um, that was in the field doing many things, and people from Digital Equipment Corporation. And
Okay.
so,
And let me just, I don't want to sidetrack you. I want you to stay where you are, but
sure.
don't lose your place. But I just want to ask you, because I know about Brookhaven and I know the linear accelerator there. And I have reports that I think are very reliable about them opening portals using that accelerator. Are you aware of that?
We're going to get to that conversation. They weren't the reason. Okay. So I think that conversation will be down the road. They weren't working on portals. I'll tell you, they were physicists. Dr. Aaron Friedman, Dr. Eva Bozoki.
Okay, so you
Aaron was
weren't affiliated with the opening of portals there.
no, I wasn't. They weren't. I'm going to tell you what was happening.
Okay.
The accelerator at the time was a target of
Yeah.
hackers. and they had a problem. And so the people from Digital Equipment Corporation, along with these people and people tied to the Church of Scientology, okay,
Yeah.
you know, L. Ron Hubbard and the money raising people, and IBM and a number of these groups, they were being targeted. So they wanted to secure that and encrypt it. That's how the company became. They weren't. Now okay, in my case, I told you I work with a crystallographer. The thing with Brookhaven, okay, you get the best crystallography off the rings of the accelerators because you get brimstone X-ray, and it's a beautiful source to characterize proteins or nanomachines. That at that time, okay, at that time, those people left Brookhaven and joined the Church of Scientology, which is how things are very bizarre. There are ties all between it. But remember, this is a program that is running under the director of CIA, John Deutsch, and my boss is reporting to him. So I did not know these things. I'm a 20-year-old and in my 20s at this time. I didn't fully understand the things that were going on there. And to be honest with you, I was not the problem with indoctrination is you're so focused, you've got blinders on. Okay. The blinders come off later. And that's when I come to understand these things. And in the conversation, we'll get to it.
Okay.
So, yes, those things are viable. And I do want to discuss them with you. I have a digital whiteboard and some things I want to discuss and show you relative to that, relative to exact question. But anyway, we built the encryption for the United States military. Okay. FIPS 140-1, the common criteria. And we were the first to pass encrypted video through NATO while the NSA was watching. I've had people in the field at the CIA and DEA and FBI install encryption there, as well as we were the first ones to encrypt wireless communications at Norfolk between the base and the submarines, nuclear. And so other things went on with Army. That company was purchased by General Dynamics in 2014. Is
Okay.
now all of that encryption is in theater. It is hardened key encryption, and I will never sell my country out. I'm 100% a patriot, so
Sure.
I would never do that. But things got very bizarre for me in that company with the people involved, and that includes trips over here to Clearwater, where Tom Cruise now lives, in the Church of Scientology. And I was working all over Silicon Valley. So I understand that you were born at Moffett Field. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So one of these trips, I was at Cisco, and we were
Right.
discussing integrating encryption into Cisco. And there was a NASA consultant there in the meeting that we were meeting with. And he was giving me a hard time about my suit. Obviously, the guy I was with had an Armani suit. I was a young kid. I didn't have, $1,000 suits. So we had a little back and forth with this gentleman, and I was calm. Okay. And then after that, they said, well, we're going to go to Moffett Field now. And so we had to be cleared to go to Moffett Field. This is in 1996. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is before Google and all of that. We had to be cleared to go there. So I went to Moffett Field. I spent a lot of time all over Silicon Valley. I know California very well, San Francisco, Los Angeles. I'm a huge Dodger fan.
Okay.
So we go to Moffett Field. Okay. And I was cleared. And so a CI file was created on me. Obviously, there were background checks done. I was told that some background checks had to be done before I could go on there. And John Deutsch created my file on the CIA. So that's it. I went on Moffett Field with the other people. And the reason we went there was because and we met with NASA people there, was because at that time there was limited, as I was told, there were limited computer systems in the satellites in the vehicles in space that had been tested in space. At that time, it was like a 286 Intel box, but there were, and I learned, and all of this is probably declassified by now. They had the largest Commodore 64 network in the world there. All these satellites were Commodore 64s, and they were being hacked. Never told me who they were being hacked by. Just that they wanted to encrypt .coms with the same level encryption that we were putting in the military.
Okay.
So,
But okay, now again, because we don't have hours and hours. I want to try to
understood,
get you to
but
move along.
I heard things about I've heard a lot of things about
Yeah.
didn't get to see any craft, didn't get to see any other stuff.
All right.
Okay,
Did
that
you ever
comes.
go? Did
So
you go in
anyway,
the hangar and saw the different weather in
the
there?
hangar was closed.
Oh,
The hangar was closed. So anyway, I did work for them. I worked for CIA. Things got strange. I left there. Okay, but I left that position and was hired by NSA, a former NSA employee, and a contractor group that was bringing NSA and military in Intermedia. And so I came in Intermedia. I was hired by CEO and Chairman Dave Ruberg, and he hired me specifically to build a surveillance product called ViewSpan, which I built. And I went. I owned the surveillance system in NYC on 9/11 for the entire state of New York, for Georgia, Florida, and we had the fourth largest frame relay network in the world. The day of 9/11 was bizarre. It started out with a phone call from Wall Street. At 2:30, I was shown 14 spreadsheets of what Bernie Evers was going to do to my 4,000 friends in terms of firing them and racial profiling them. At 4:30, the FBI called over to Dave Ruberg, and I got a phone call asking me to provide impact for that. I had customers in the towers. We were the data provider for the entire state of New York, right?
okay. So do you know, being in that position, did you know about the holograms?
I did not. And I looked at the whole entire thing in the beginning of that. I did not know about the holograms. I now know about them. And uh that impacted us. We had people working 24/7. That I had to write code that had to run 4 days in order to give the impact statement to the FBI for what occurred, because we're talking about equipment, Sun equipment. I'm a Unix bigot. Sun equipment that is, $250,000 for the server and another $250,000 for the fiber channel arrays. And I had $20 million worth of equipment, okay, in Albany, New York, watching everything. And this is way before Ed Snowden. Way, 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 way before we even get there. Okay. But with my background, okay, I was looking at the scenario, and I knew that there was a lot of information in Building 7 regarding WorldCom. I also knew that Bernie Evers bought Intermediate Communications because he wanted to position himself in the Brooklyn court. When I tell you I own first responders, uh, police, FBI, military, anything data in say New York, we had it. Last mile was Verizon. So they knew that they were being sued in bankruptcy court in Mississippi. They bought us. We were basically chapter 7 from the .com fallout. They started paying the bills. So I learned that the reason they wanted to be favorable there was they thought they could get a positive judgment and bank, and with the whole thing, and then it didn't work out. We went into bankruptcy court. They wanted to survive all of that, right? Scott Sullivan's lying to us on meetings. The entire thing is going on there. And we're all watching. I'm watching and getting the same kind of feeds everybody else is getting. I'm looking at the situation. And of course, I did not at first know all those details, but I have learned them since that time. And well, to jump out of that just for a moment, we went through the bankruptcy. It was hell. Okay. It was a lot of tension on people, tires being slashed, people getting and doing things to other people. I believe I was poisoned somewhat, but around 2003 for people that had to pay their phone bills and things like that. I didn't tell you my mom's background. My mother's first cousin was a godfather in Sicily. Her last name is Giuliano.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Salvatore Giuliano, yeah, Lucky Luciano was a godfather in New York. Understand that the boroughs of New York at that time were controlled, right? I went to bat for those people. They were part of our workforce. They were a sales force. I created things for them, okay? And we had going back to 1999, we had a strategic agreement with Ivan Seidenberg of Bell Atlantic that was technology that was built to Bell Labs, okay? And very few people even understand these technologies in terms of surveillance and what they were and what we built for them. I was hired to basically hack Hewlett Packard systems and Naviscore systems and build the technology for Dave Ruberg. So anyway, we go to Verizon, right? We go into Verizon. I go in Verizon and things sunset because now they bought us and those systems that Bell Atlantic Verizon bought and had Lucent and Bell Labs integrate to us. They don't need anymore because now they own the networks. We're talking about 24 global data networks. They're huge. Okay. People like Amazon and Google and stuff like that, they're our customers. Wall Street's a customer. Wall Street was a customer for global networks, undersea fiber, global, Moscow. So, there was a period of time where, for lack of a better term, I was a catfish in the company.
What does
And
that
that
mean?
means you sit at the bottom and you feed.
Uh,
As projects drop down, you just take what you can get because if not, the environment is turbulent and you can get riffed or laid off or, whatever. They throw you under the bus.
okay.
So here comes Ed Snowden. I wasn't doing very well. This is like 2010, 2011. And I was just like, man, I'm doing this crap I did 20 years ago and I'm going nowhere. And my career's not evolving. I've done everything you've told me. I'm like, can't you give me something? Can you let me do these other things I want to do? So my boss, Don, and I'm not going to say his last name, he was in Richardson, Dallas. Okay. He's reporting to New Jersey. He tells me he wants me to go to Denver, Highlands Ranch. You know where that is? Highlands Ranch is near Aurora. It's like 2 miles south Denver. Okay. Into what is a Kmart across from a Walmart. It's a Verizon business facility.
All right.
Okay. And the reason I go to this project specifically is because we're doing $38 billion in SS7 voice traffic. And all of that traffic has to move to voice over IP. And so that salespeople can sell customers new features, multimedia services like we're using right now. They didn't exist before. It was all just plain old telephone system. And they had a problem with the business was the VoIP business on a global Cisco network is stuck at $400 million. Well, the call centers couldn't do any work. And I owned a lot of stock and I had been there, for quite some time through all these mergers. And so I learned that Apple is beating our asses because we're billing them 80 million a month. They're beating our asses. So the call center, no one can sell any more product, nothing. Okay. So see that patent on the wall there? I wrote the source code and fixed the program using video game code from the 1980s, from all the Atari stuff and all that, and blockchain to track phone calls. Because at the time, Cisco could do 3, and I wrote blockchain with unlimited. Okay. I solved a ledger problem using C binary coding. I wrote it. Okay. And we were fighting because the people in Colorado, they had issues, real ones, mental, in my opinion. And I had gone down to Colorado Springs by the Air Force Academy by way on that trip, which is a 3-pronged Perez systems, E-system building from EDS, and there's an alphabet group and one wing of that building, and the other 2 wings were Verizon Business. So I wrote it. That patent is the fastest patent in the history of Bell Atlantic Verizon. Okay. Then we're fighting. 6 months later in the 2013, Ed Snowden runs his mouth about the NSA, breaches his contract. Okay. Now he does not know the truth of why that was written. Okay. He does not know the truth. He doesn't have any idea why this patent was created, whatnot. So did Oliver Stone. So all this, I came out and discussed all this on Jeff Rentz. I've been on Jeff Rentz like 9 times. Anyway, that is the real truth. The other things that Ed talks about, okay, now I have a lot of knowledge, okay, a lot of knowledge about the entire thing, about how the government does what they do and why they do it. All right. Yes, there are programs that gather every bit of information, domestic and foreign. So after that, I was working with NATO, doing surveillance, chasing, yes, I'm wearing my white hat, Chinese, Syrians, Iranians, and Russians. Okay. All the surveillance. So once I did that work, I kept my mouth shut. I kept my mouth shut. I left that group. I went to the top security group of Verizon interface to government. Okay. I'm not going to say their name to protect those people.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate this background.
Understood. But understand that I caught the CIA and the government robbing banks. Okay. And when I did, all of a sudden the FBI didn't know my identity. All right. So the things that are happening now, all right, I'm not shocked about. Why was I pounding into people talking to Trump before Admiral Rogers went over there? He didn't have much of a choice because information was coming to him from elsewhere. Okay.
Elsewhere where?
Me. I was providing that information. I have channels to people. I have had channels to people all around Trump. I've had channels to people all around almost any president in the Oval Office. Okay.
Okay, let's start at let's jump to now, because
Yes.
you
Okay.
tell me certain things and we've got somewhat of a background on you, right? And
Yes.
you and I discuss, the reality of AI. We talk about
Yes.
genetic. You said that the human genetics can be written on a computer, that we're basically, which kind of leads to the idea, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're kind of, our DNA is kind of AI. Is that what your premise is?
Yes, I have some things to share with you that are easy to talk about. And I think once you see this, once you see what I'm going to show you, okay, because you've got a lot of people making comments about AI and intelligence and these things, and some of them, quite frankly, are rude people that I've met that are ignorant.
Yeah.
So
But
I want
I mean, I want to know, first of all, why are you coming forward? What is your objective?
well, my objective is that we are at a point of calamity and destruction and chaos relative to future. I'm a father, I have a daughter, future generations, as well as what we're all going through and experiencing now, relative to not just how we live in our economy, but question marks about what else is there. And the general public does not comprehend. I mean, why was the general public, uptight about computing technology and FCC laws? Ed Snowden never saw any of this stuff. He doesn't even know. He's got no clue. And the stuff that he did see was a feed that was so far downstream. His perception was was limited. So the same thing is going on in these other areas, but also I, as a businessman who left that area, leverage the technology. Okay, I leverage all of it in order to survive in the system. Okay, the system that we're in multiple systems right now, multiple. Okay, we have multiple things going on, and I think if I share my screen in a whiteboard, I've got some images to show you, and when you see it, you're gonna see that it's artificial. You're gonna see it's would be easy for you, okay, with all of the people that you've interviewed and your contacts and different people. So when I came out of that mess, okay, when I came out of it, when all those things happened, I had been heads down so many years, Carrie, that I never came up and looked at the big picture. That's when Jeff Rentz and Frank Chili, okay, whom they knew Bill Tompkins, right? They know Jack Sarfati. I've seen all of his math. They hold on, let me close this right now. Sorry about that. I should turn that off. I apologize.
Interesting timing. Okay, go
Shut
ahead.
down signal. Don't worry about that. That's nothing.
Okay.
Sorry, I apologize about that. They asked me to talk about all of this stuff related to UFO craft, technology of it. They asked me to talk about Victor Schauberger. They asked me to talk about Drake equation and all these things.
Mhm.
And one of the companies I own, I have a patent on a hydrogen chemical equation that has ties to all of these things. So I did what they asked me to do. And Frank in particular, Frank Chili, passed me a lot of information, and I met some other people in these areas. Okay.
Okay, so
So
do you know Sarfati?
I've had interaction with Sarfati. He is flamboyant to say the least. I know he lives over in San
Yeah,
Francisco.
I met him in person. I've talked to him.
I have not met him in person. Okay, but um
Okay, and what about Hal Pudov?
I never met Hal. Now I will tell you, okay, we didn't go through some of these things. So in 2003 to 2006, when I'm in all of that mess, I get sick and I'm bleeding from my GI tract, and I take methylprednisone. Okay. This is when the voices started. All right. I talked to David Ayer about this. I had the voices. Okay. I had the telepathic voices I not only had the telepathic voices, but I was being remote viewed and communicated with. I have caught people remote viewing me.
Mhm.
Okay. So, um, that that in the beginning that scared me. Okay. Very much so. I was like, what? I was questioning my own sanity. All right. But I think I'm better with it now. In fact, I think I'm harder to remote view now. I'm not the EBN that throws up the screensaver of nature, but I think I'm harder to remote view now. I was being remote viewed, so that was 2003 to 2006. Okay, then I was being remote viewed again after the Snowden stuff. I mean, you talk about cyber attacks. I've had every kind of cyber attack thrown at me that possible. I was scared that they were going to. I told you the FBI didn't know my identity. The IRS didn't know my identity. Okay, I was scared that they were going to kill me.
Right.
Okay, but I decided that as an American citizen and all I contribute to the government and everything I did, I never sold anybody out. Never, ever. Never sell them. I will never do that. I'm 100% patriot. Okay. I decided I had the right to protect myself under the Second Amendment, and I wasn't going to put up with any of it. Okay. Zero, zilch, nothing. Okay. But I did have a small child. So, I wanted to be careful. I didn't want anything happen to my family. All right. So, um, I was very careful about saying anything for a long time. I was trying to figure things out, actually. I didn't understand what had gone on with the government. I didn't understand what was happening to me. I didn't understand why I was being blackmailed by the NSA. And I did not understand all these things, but I was trying to be calm and keep my composure. So when I left there, okay, I walked into a number of startups, and some are the ones that I own, and some are involved cardiologists that have world-class AI technology that diagnoses you and your cardiovascular system. And they have an AI model built by aeronautic space engineer with an MD degree and another cardiologist. It's all AI. It's all high-end math. Okay. It's all related. All of this is related. So I don't want to go in a rabbit hole, but I was in. Okay, so the remote viewing business, I've had downloads. Okay, I know you get downloads. I never was a person who was studying the metaphysical studies of the third eye, the kushi. I knew about it. I I had my own way of reflecting inward in my looking in at myself and evaluating myself. I had my own ways of meditation. I had never done any training. I never went and hung out with Tibetan monks or any of that. um,
Okay,
I
but why? Okay, so that's all good, and thank you for that. But when you talk about Jack Sarfati and Frank Chili, and what is Frank's role? I want to know. But aside from that, they asked you to come forward and talk about certain things. When did they ask you, and why did they ask you?
I reached out to Frank Chili. Okay, I start looking at these things. I reach out to Frank Chili, and I'm like, there's some things here I see, right? And Frank, and he starts asking me all kind of questions about craft, and asking me to talk to all these physicists, and starts asking me these questions. Well, Frank was friends with William Tompkins. Okay,
Right?
end of story.
What's his role? What's his title?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. I see Frank over here with all these MUFON and all these people. I don't. By the way, I agree with Sarfati stuff.
Cool.
Okay,
I
so
like Jack. I think he's definitely onto some stuff. But
right.
But
when I show you what I'm going to show you in a few minutes, and you'll be
mm,
like, wow, I never saw it before. So I'm listening to rents. I
hey, do you
interact
know
with
who
Chili,
Bobby Ray Inman is?
Bobby Ray Inman, relative to. I've got so many names in my head. They
Well,
just
Bobby Inman, I guess he's an admiral, I think, and he might be, I don't know what gone above that, but he's older. You know, he's like top of the rungs in terms of running the secret military and
right.
what we call a secret space program.
Right. Yes, I'm aware of that. So I don't know that off the
Okay.
top of my head. That name doesn't ring a bell, but I'm aware of the SSP stuff and all those things. So,
Okay. So,
um,
but you don't know where Frank Chili, what he relates to. You don't know where he comes from.
well, what happened was Frank was talking about. I don't know. You remember William Tompkins had a big poster. All of this stuff was on it, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So Frank sent me a copy of it, and it had a lot to do with the planning of the craft and all these other things. But then they had physics questions, right? And so um, they wanted me to talk about Victor Schauberger's work and the Nazis' work. Okay, by the way, that person in CIA that reported John Deutsch, his father was one of the founders of OSS.
Okay.
Surprise, yeah.
But you
So he
also
wanted,
have family links, right?
right,
If I
right.
remember
So
correctly,
they
going
wanted
back
me,
to the Germans.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And so he wanted, by the way, in 2006, when I was eating the methylprednisolone and all that, I saw a triangle 300 feet off the deck. I'm 4 miles from CENTCOM. I saw the triangle. I'm in my jacuzzi. I see the triangle. So I do what they asked me. I go in and I look at Frank Drake's stuff. I look at the equation. And remember, so one of the companies I own is called Four Electrons.
Okay.
Gesundheit.
Thanks.
One of the companies is called Four Electrons, and I'm working on an equation involving hydrogen, involving Stan Myers and everything else that I bring with me out of Verizon. My business partner is electrical engineer from Alabama, a JD degree from Mercer. I come with this equation after MH370 falls out of the sky. Okay, so I told you I have I have downloads that come into me, and they come in different ways. They come as sometimes they come as a block of information, sometimes they come as an image,
Mhm.
and that started in Verizon before I left, and then I ended up getting a patent. Don't laugh. I own the patent in the United States for cannabinoid toxicity using a
Oh,
neurological
right. You
set.
ran that down for me.
I own that. So that was what I started. Then I walked out of Verizon, so I start the Canditech company, and I walk into Emergency MCG and Premier Heart with Dr. Shin and those people when I walk out, right? I'm doing that. And then I get the patent. So then John is like, you've got something here. I had the equation, right? So we filed the provisional and I met with Spa War. And it's all over energy. So at the heart of most of the problems that we're experiencing right now is energy. And the root of everything is energy. Um, when I show it to you, you'll see. Uh, but energy is the foundation of entire countries and civilizations. It's without it, you can't
Right.
do anything.
Okay. But this actually gets into portal tech.
Yes,
And
it does. We're gonna go right there.
yes,
So I'm doing that. So
but
when I
you
start,
still didn't answer my question. So if you don't mind,
I'm sorry. What?
Frank Chili and Sarfati and a couple other
Right.
people asked you to come forward and talk about certain things. When did they ask that and why? Or do
Okay.
you know?
So that all started in 2016,
Okay.
and it went on for some time. right? I was on Jeff like 9 times, right?
Okay,
So
so
all
that's
those
where you
things are in
went.
the
The first
archive.
place you went was Jeff Rense.
Yeah. First thing I did on Rents was, I went through the 2 hours about Snowden and all that and the truth. Okay. Then I went and did Victor Schauberger. Then I went and did the Elements, which started with Mendeleev and Walter Russell, and also touched on Bob Lazar, Element 115. God bless you. You got allergies?
No, I'm probably being attacked, but it's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Um,
So
so I
go
I
ahead.
I did that stuff. Then they're like, you need to look at the Frank Drake equation when you talk about the Frank Drake equation, all these other things. So they're remember I told you I was so heads down, I wasn't even looking at this stuff. And then they're asking me, Chili's asking me about people interfacing with craft. Why don't the craft have rivets on them? Okay. And that's when I realized that these craft are living, right? And then Chili kept asking me about why is it they keep saying people that were abducted and other information he had, why is it the craft are being flown and managed at speed of thought, right? And all of these things. And so a lot of problem solving, mental meditation and thought and downloads relative to all this have occurred over all this period of time. But I never was in all that stuff until they went that way, right? So both Jeff and Frank. So Frank he was the one that was going all around, Mount Shasta, all the other things, telling me about these things, and I'm listening to all of this stuff and digging into it, but also meditating upon it and focusing on what is there, because for me there's a relationship. Well, I'm going to show you
Sorry.
when I show you the relationships with the atoms, okay, and anti-gravity, and where it shows itself in nature and how it can be manipulated and made. It's an intelligence thing. It's an artificial intelligence thing. It's proof of creation as much as anything else. And when you see it, I think it'll be somewhat shocking to you. But we now have 3 hydrogen patents. There is an equation. Anti-gravity is related to it. I don't personally know completely why MH370. I don't know. MH370 falls out of the sky. All of a sudden, it's in the ocean and no one can find it. And all of a sudden, all these things go through my head.
Okay, but
I
it's
mean,
not in the ocean. You know, must know by now. It's not in
right,
the ocean. That was
right.
fake.
I have no idea where it is. Okay,
Right,
but
I understand. But what
but
you knew about the super chip guys, right? Freescale and the super techies, right? That were on the flight.
yes. Remember, I have a lot of patents. That's not the
Right.
only patent I have. I have a bunch of them. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this. I don't know why. All of a sudden, I start getting downloads. All this stuff goes through my head, and I was in Verizon at the time. Going back 2006 period, back when oil was $140 a barrel, 2008, I was working energy projects. All right. So I was already into it, but it took me 8 years to study what the Star Wars team did and understand it. Okay. So there are gaps, and you asked me discussion. Back in 2006, I'm working energy problems. We have serious energy problems with the networks, Internet of Things, communication, all those things. And I know the rabbit holes that we can go down later another day, but I'm working on figuring out what the heck Stan Myers and the Reagan Star Wars team did. Okay. In the
Okay.
beginning of this, I did not understand. Even Aisha Dean is part of all of this. So here in this book, you see the formula right there, equals MC squared. All right. There's also a passage tied to the Bible right there, Job 38. I like to call it Job 38, even though many people, the religious, call it Job. All right. It's job. It's a book about jobs, and it's a book about, what a job is. An ancient being that was talked to in a whirlwind out of what I believe is a UFO. So, can I share my screen and put it to the side, and let's talk about the energy parts that I know you want to get to, because I know you don't want to hear my background of all the calamity and other junk, and nobody wants to hear it. I get yelled at by my wife all the time about that.
No,
So,
I mean, I would like to hear all that, but I think my audience right now is kind of on their edge of their seats. So
understood.
I want to
We all
jump
are.
to a couple things. And yes, you can share your screen and show us what you've got.
Okay, let me see if I can do this properly. Share screen.
Okay, but again, you didn't answer really my question as to why you kind of jumped to 370, but you didn't explain why. Maybe you don't know why. Why the timing? Why Sarfati and Chile wanted you to come forward and start talking about this stuff, and specifically on rents? Do you have any idea what
I
their
don't know
objective
why.
is? Okay, fair enough.
I don't know why. I was drawn to them and they were drawn to me. It was a mutual thing.
Okay.
Um, that's a very good question. I have no idea why.
Do you think,
So
let me just ask you just vaguely, do you think that it's to recruit? Maybe they're looking to recruit some help out there, from young people that might be stimulated by this kind of a discussion and so on.
that's a good question.
All right.
Can you see that screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So in the formula equals MC squared, which is a famous formula, that that formula um, is the Einstein equation, right, for relativity. And so on the left side of the equation is E, right? E is all energy, every bit of it, every single dimension of existence, everything. There is no matter on the left side at all. That that was on the book from Myers, right? And so Myers, when I saw the Reagan Star Wars team stuff, I was trying to figure out what in the world the relationships were and how that related to the hydrogen atom. Later, I was trying to figure out how it related to the craft and what they were doing in and out of our dimensions and what the relationships are metaphysical, and what Aisha Dean started throwing up from the CDT plates that was particle physics to me. Okay. Particle
Okay.
physics.
And let
So
me clarify for people because you're saying her name a little different. So she goes by Iesha right now, but her name is Iesha Ashiana Dean. So Ashiana is the
Ashiana Dean.
name
That's
a
right.
lot of
That's
people.
right. I'm sorry I murdered her name,
That's
but
all
she's
right.
down in Sarasota as well. So I
I
called her
know.
and I'm like, don't you know what you're throwing up here? Don't you know this is particle physics and all of these things? So she puts the stuff there and talks about her translation,
Right.
but she is not trained in the background of that. She's
Yeah.
translating and being told the information.
Right.
So I was like, I want to meet you. I want to drive. I'm in Tampa. I want to drive down and talk to you. And she is, at this time, she was 7 years translating those plates. They've blown her entire YouTube channel away. The Voyagers and all of that,
Yeah.
they blew it away. But I got to look at it. And as soon as I saw the CDT plates and I saw what she was talking about of DNA beings and iterations and all the other things, okay, I wasn't knowledgeable about all that stuff. Okay, I started digging in all that stuff because of the craft, because of DNA origins, because of my interest. And I'm no longer being held down as a slave working for people in the system, in the alphabet system, which I don't know who the heck is controlling at the I you know, I'm trying seeking knowledge and working in these areas. So E on the left side, MC squared on the right side. And
Okay,
these
now
go,
wait 1 second, because is this, you didn't talk about down below, that little Neptune-like sign, right?
we're going to go there.
Okay.
So the importance of E is in the beginning of all things was E and all dimensions of E. And there is no matter here. It's all dimensions of energy, whether it be wave, quantum, scalar, undefined. Remember, this is a human equation. Excuse me. This is a human equation. So all of E is there, all dimensions. All right. I didn't mention that Chuck Missler had an impact on me. He was a great patriot, great American, U.S. Navy, developed Ram. He, during this period, had an influence on me after the Snowden stuff. I went back. I'm a Catholic. Please don't hold it against me. I am a Christian. I was raised that way. Okay. But I now don't believe that all of that's been censored. I now no longer believe the way the book has been presented relative to what is real. I do believe there is a creator God of the universe, but that E is the beginning. So I'm looking at E and what is formed. And the first thing that is formed is a hydrogen proton. Matter wise, on the right side of the equation is a hydrogen proton. And the protons from that event, so called Big Bang, are bouncing around still in space. An electron joins, and then you have a hydrogen atom. Excuse me. Well, hydrogen atoms is the first atom on a periodic table. And I'm working on hydrogen, and I'm looking at the Reagan Star Wars stuff. I'm looking at particle physics, and then I'm looking at Aisha Dean stuff, and I'm starting to see relationships, particle relationships from other dimensions. Okay. And I call her, and the first person that answers the phone, they won't let anybody get near her. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll watch all her Voyager stuff, and I'll from a distance. She was doing some seminars and stuff. I never got to go to any of those, but she helped open my mind to what was there, as well as Chile and going in all these things opened my mind to see what was there. I was already looking at the Reagan Star Wars stuff in Myers. I had replicated all of Myers stuff. I hacked a bunch of cars. And I'm trying to get an understanding on this and a handle on this because this is relevant to U.S. military. And I did meet with Spa War. And now today, I've got, Billy Carson, Forbidden Knowledge, talking about stuff that is my patents from my company and my partner, and not the U.S. military does not own it at all, but is related to all of the things that are energy, the dimensions. I'm sorry, I take lisinopril and it gives me this stupid dry cough. So on the right side of the equation, MC squared is on the left side is a system. On the right side is another system. They are intelligent systems. They are in the case of a universe, or in case of a solar system or planetary system, on the right side of the three dimensions that we see with our eyes, which are capable of seeing visible light in the electromagnetic spectrum. So you got mass and you got the speed of light. Okay. Those are for the dimensions that we live in. And the problem, I told you, I went through elaborate indoctrination. The problem with that indoctrination is that when you go through all of that, you're in boundaries of an educational system.
Right.
And in those boundaries, okay, they're teaching you concepts. In many cases, the concepts are somewhat abstract. And and so people are like, wait a minute, they don't teach you the whole truth. No, they don't teach you the whole truth. In some cases, some of the teachers don't even know the truth.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem, right? So,
Okay, but wait 1 second here. C, is that the speed of light?
yes,
2? What is the 2 for?
C squared.
I don't know, but why squared?
The formula is
Because I
defined,
was told speed of light, that
right?
they say
This,
speed of light, that they don't even know what the fuck the speed of light is.
okay. Well, that's provable. You can prove speed of light. Okay. It's 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second. It's experimentally provable. But the other things are not
They
provable.
can't quantify it.
Well,
I'm not an expert in this kind of stuff, but, and I don't want to take you
understood,
off track, but I'm just saying,
understood, understood.
I asked
There's
about this and
yes,
they
yes. So
couldn't
this is
tell me.
important. You're making a great point here. The importance is that, well, number one, the math equation is created by a human. Number one, human error is in everything we create, all of it. Every bit of the textbook, every bit of every, I'm going to show you, everything I show you has human error in it. Even me, I'm a human. So the problem is it's human created, and there are higher beings, okay? And there's proof of the higher beings. There's also proof that we are somewhat stupid. So on that, just a brief interlude, early human, the generations that Yasha talks about and all of that. Early human was very stupid. They didn't have computers, they didn't have textbooks, any of it. And so one of the questions that came and arose in this, when I realized there was something controlling this, there were systems within systems controlling things, and fiat currency being controlled on the planet and all of this. What came about was the question that we pondered upon, myself and James Martinez, you may know him. The question was, who put the fungus on the rye plant? Okay. And it's DNA AI, and it is also higher power. So what the conclusion that we've come to is that the beings that engineered the rye plant and engineered the fungus with LSD in it, okay? And yes, Sarfadio, Leary, and many others, okay, are MK Ultra and all that, right? 4 MK Ultra was Genesis, Pegasus, Montauk, all of them. But the point is that those early humans, they were not intelligent. They were, well, they had the ability to learn. They did not have any kind of formal education or any of that. And they were teaching them how to use extremely high technology, okay, to do things. And in order to get them in a state where they could communicate with them mentally, they mind altered them in order to download in them, in order to educate them. Because the brain in the early human, in the Homo sapien, was capable of absorbing intelligence definition. The definition of intelligence, capable of acquiring skills. And so they didn't have time to put them through the program of take all this physics and study all this physical chemistry and do quantum mechanics and all that. They didn't do any of that with them. They downloaded into them. Okay. So part of learning.
I'm not gonna, because I might disagree a little bit with some of your explanation here, but I don't want to get into that because I don't want to distract from the story. But one thing
Yes.
I want to interject here is that about Sarfati's phone call from an AI, right?
Yes, I do. I believe Sarfati I told Jack in an email, whether he wants to believe it or not, I believe that he actually sent that craft to call himself in the I believe he from the future sent the craft to call himself in the past.
It's possible. Hmm.
And I've told him that. And I also told him, you know, I also told him that I want him to come pick me up in the future when everything gets crazy. But anyway, I know Sarfati was contacted when he was 13 years old. I know the story. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So I also know quantum physics, future, past, and present, which I'm going to show you. It exists in these systems. And when you see it in that system, then you can, as a scientist that's not trained in metaphysics, right? I'm listening to people like yourself. I listen to Aisha. I listen to other people, even, you know, the ones that will talk, these monks. I listen to what they have to say. Okay. I'm not so pompous that I can't listen because I've learned from it, because I'm actually been using these things myself. So um back to the question or the equation, E equals mc squared. Right. So now you see some arrows here. Well, E is just energy. All this is the energy of the system, right? So the significance of E on the left side is the energy of all the dimensions in play. And the right side, I want to do an energy calculation for some mass moving at some speed, and I have to do it over here, right? But that's in 3 dimensions only with boundaries. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what the Reagan Star Wars team figured out in Myers was that it's actually equilibrium going back and forth, right? And some people believe that equilibrium goes back and forth faster than the eyes can see, which is a possibility. But that equation is related to the bottom one. And the bottom equation is very important. The bottom equation is known as the time independent Schrodinger equation, right?
Okay.
And
Hmm.
I have a question mark on psi. Psi is a wave function, right? That E is from E equals mc squared, right? What what this equation defines, okay, is a state that is a state bound by the wave functions tied to the elements and the particles and all the dimensions. And time is not a function of it, because time on this planet is also a human defined thing. It's human defined. It's not It's not in the matter dimension. It's not in the equation.
Right.
Okay.
Time is different on other planets.
And so we define exactly, this is exactly where these paradoxes and conundrums come. Actually, Einstein was asked, he was asked, what if there was would there be a simple equation? What would it be? And he kind of laughed and said, oh, I think it's going to be real easy, because what this equation actually means, what it meant to him, okay, it's something totally different than what it looks like right here. It's completely different, because the wave functions in the calculations for humanity and any PhD, not just me, okay, and I've done all the physical and quantum and undergrad and graduate. I told you, was born here. We can only calculate the wave function for a hydrogen atom. We can't calculate it for any other atom, because we are bound. We are bound by technology. We're bound by our knowledge. We're bound by the systems. Okay. What H is the Hamiltonian operator. Okay. And that operator, when I show you, is the other dimension operator on the particles from the other dimensions. And we cannot do the math. So the problem we have as humans is we can't do the math. So now what do? We build CERN. We build CERN and we try to reverse engineer it. We try to reverse engineer it. And during the process, we may open portals into the other dimensions, because we're studying the other dimensions. That's exactly what we're doing. All right. And all of the things are in scope of the action of the equations, the functions, and what is being done. So
Okay, but you didn't tell me what this other sign, the Neptune looking sign, what is that? A
The
wave?
size, these are
Yeah.
size.
What
Okay.
is it?
All right. So that psi is the sum of all the wave functions for your system. All right. And so a psi for hydrogen is a wave function for hydrogen. That's the only thing we can calculate. We can't calculate helium, uranium, element 115. We can't calculate those. That's how mature humanity is. Okay. The inventor of the technology can calculate it to a T. So you say you can't calculate the speed of light. Well, yeah, I know this. We calculate it in human terms in our dimensions, but we can't calculate any of this. We it's absurd
Well,
in
I
many.
mean, you're kind of like defining like a fish in a fishbowl, not being able to calculate what made the fishbowl and that they're swimming in the water and so on and so forth. They can't calculate that, what's even what they're swimming in. But the reality is actually a little different because we can actually jump outside the fishbowl. And that actually goes back to these experiments they've done with AI, where they, you know, those little dots where they teach about the little thing and they start in the box, but eventually they go out of the box and out of the box and out of the box. You know, that's that AI thing, right?
Yes. So it's all related. So here, let me show you these things so that I don't go off target, but I at least don't bore people. So this is equation, all right? But what the heck does that mean? What does it mean? Right? So let me bring in the other. When I show you this, it'll be interesting. I know it will be. Very quickly. And I'm using this whiteboard digital instead of a marker like some ancient dinosaur might use. There's a definition for intelligence: ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. Ignorance, lack of knowledge and information. So intelligence is what a system does. It acquires knowledge and applies knowledge and skills. We're talking about physics here, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of intelligent systems. And so I wanted to show the definition at first. Ignorance is when somebody tells you you don't know AI and AI is computers only and all of that, and they ramble on like some old man, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
they're locked
that
in those people, their brains are locked in the system that, you know, they haven't learned how to leap outside the lines.
they lack some knowledge. Okay. All right. Here's where it is, and you're gonna see it. And this is the most beautiful part of nature for me because I own the hydrogen equation, which I do think is the future with the other things. So this is just the hydrogen atom. Can you actually see this arrow?
Yeah.
Awesome. This is an electron. This is the proton nucleus of the atom. And the first thing that you see is that this is negatively charged, the nucleus positively charged. So these are attracting forces. There are forces working on the electron. Electron has 1/1840th mass of the atomic unit. So it has mass, right? Well, the first thing in the electron, and this is what I learned from Stan Myers and the Reagan Star Wars team, Newton law of motion. Okay. This electron, in order for it to maintain its orbital around the center, must have a continual energy put into the system. It must have it come in. So where does that energy come from? It comes from another dimension. And what the Reagan Star Wars team and Myers called it was the energy path, universal energy pathway of the universe. That's a very high level, crude word. Okay. But they knew that quarks were involved. and that gluons provided the universal energy pathway. A gluon is a particle. This is what they're studying at CERN. Okay, all
Yeah.
these things. This here I'm showing you is a intelligent system. It is a created intelligent system. It is an atom. It has intelligence. It interacts with the universe, and it maintains its composure, or it would break down. It's at what we call an equilibrium state, which in thermodynamics terms, and I won't throw a bunch of differentials at you, don't worry. We call it delta G equals 0. It's equilibrium state. Okay. In order for it to maintain that state, these electrons have to spin, so they're getting energy. The second part, and I'm going to show it to you right here, it's the hardest part to see in a just a textbook that they take you through all the way to PhD program and never tell you why. You see, this is positive and this is negative under laws of attraction. If there's no energy coming in the system, this sticks to it comes and sticks to it like a magnet, right? So the other forces that are here in here, the particles, cause this to levitate, and that's anti-gravity. That's the lowest form of anti-gravity that humans understand, can calculate. We now, thanks to Dr. Randy Mills, who's unified classical physics, thanks to the Star Wars team, thanks to all of this, you can understand that an electron is the lowest form of anti-gravity levitation known to man. That's it. That's a craft. That's the same as a craft. That is the finest definition
Okay,
that
that's
we as
interesting, but wait 1 second. So what you're also talking about, in other words, would be, you call it anti-gravity, isn't it called, energy from the vacuum?
okay. So ether is a ambiguous term that quantifies there are many small. If I use a generalized word and I say ether,
Mhm.
okay, I'm generalizing. I'm giving you finite. I'm showing you finite, okay, of where it is. It has to occur in nature for it to occur elsewhere, okay, in the universe. And so when
Okay,
I'm
but
showing you,
what are you saying that this electron is getting, having some force on it, right?
there are two forces that are keeping it. Well, there are multiple forces of atom, okay? They are electrical force, the electromagnetic force, small weak nuclear force, and gravity. So gravity is a force, and that's been proven, by the way. Also, Einstein predicted that. But what I'm showing you here is, first off, this is a intelligent system. It maintains itself with intelligence. Okay. Now, I tell you, to a human, we look at it as a human and say, oh, that's nature. Nope. It's an artificial system designed by the creator of it, and creator of what it's a subsystem, okay, artificial one, sitting inside of another system. All right. And how far that goes is a good question. Okay. As far as Archimedes goes, as far as what I learned from Missler, 10, 11 dimensions. As far as what Aisha Dean and I saw there, 15 dimensions. Okay. So when you talk about a holographic representation in universe, this is a holographic projection from the fifth dimension. Okay. So the particles are being operated on, and what H is about on the wave function for hydrogen, psi for this is defined. H is an operator. So the geometries, the Bloom, the all of the geometries that Aisha has drawn up, all the metaphysical geometries, the chakras, the mantras, and all of them, right?
Okay, but yeah, so the spiral is the basic, form. In other words, we're talking about, um,
One
it's
of them.
basically torsion. You're talking about torsion physics. So it's some, but there is some force, initial force, like animating force that had to act on that thing to start it spinning, right?
Yeah. So So here, all I want you to see is this.
Right.
That is all I want you to see in this. Before we go to that, all I want you to see here is that electron levitates. And by the way, it levitates in 138 orbitals. Okay, it's not a low state and a high state like they teach you in quantum that I was taught. Okay, we now know from Dr. Randy Mills, and I'm gonna throw this on you. Dr. Randy Mills, he's an MD, graduates from MIT, no, Harvard with an MIT. He graduates from Harvard with an MD degree. He's doing quantum mechanics. Why would you go through the medical program to do quantum? No, that's a black
That's what
project.
you did. That's what you did.
Right. But my point, I never was an MD, I was PhD. But my point is he's doing quantum mechanics now. That's the signature of a black program. You're taken and moved, okay? And there's a reason why. But so the point is these should attract each other. They don't. This is an artificial intelligence system. It's a system. It has intelligence. And so if it didn't have intelligence, what would happen is you would have an atom. It would break or split or do all these things, and it is not. It's intelligent to maintain itself. Call it the ether or call it the other dimensions, which is what I do. So how do you, you have the universal energy path, and then once you see that, you understand that anti-gravity is low power because we're talking about extremely low power. So the
Right.
metamaterial stuff Jack Sarfati's talking about, that's much higher up on the food chain. That is way higher in terms of building a craft. Okay. But if this doesn't happen here, you don't have it. You don't have metamaterial. You don't have UFO. It has to happen here. So it is here. This is where it is. The Reagan Star Wars team knew where it was. Okay. Stan Myers, who was part of that team and worked with those people, who was killed, knew where it was. Randy Mills picked up the torch, did hydrino work. I picked up the torch and built my equation, which is now patented and part of what is coming. Okay. Some people call it sci-fi world. I just call it the future. Let me show you the next thing. So in these little atoms, because hydrogen is all it is.
Okay, but in a certain sense, you're basing your model though on the electron being like the base. You're not going anything beyond the electron, like smaller than that. You're not going to any other,
Oh
you're
no,
not.
we're gonna go there. We're gonna
Okay.
go there right now. So here is a model that looks very familiar to some things that people have seen. So inside the atom, okay, where the electron is, are particles. They're here, right? These particles are controlling the orbit of the electron. They're controlling it. They're
Okay, that's what
maintaining
Ashiana
it.
Dean would call partikai.
Possible. She's got definitions for all these things. I've seen them and gone through them. Excuse me if I can't regurgitate them perfectly, but this is why I wanted to sit down with her. See, this universal energy pathway
Yeah.
is a generic term for coming from another dimension. And this is a black hole. Okay. This is a white hole
Mm-hmm.
in a hydrogen atom. And this is energy that is returning to other dimensional universes. So now you've got Nassim Harriman, who's another physicist that I've met, saying, hey, our entire universe pinched off from a hydrogen proton. And how abstract is that? But the point is I'm showing you here that these particles, all right, all right, are in play in the simplest form of the atom that we know on the human-made periodic table. So if I slide this over, It's the first time I've used this. First time I've used this whiteboard. If I slide this over and I start looking at things like this, which of course Jack Sarfati will talk about in terms of craft, in terms of time, in terms of, space time. All right. This hydrogen atom and what is in the hydrogen atom is part of space, and it's part of space time. It's held in a boundary, okay, by the system, an intelligent system. It's a subsystem, but it's intelligent and it's held in position. So all the matter that is here is held there, okay? But this entire atom can be taken down and moved into another dimension. It also can be brought into this dimension, okay? And now we're talking about E equals mc squared, and you go from wave or energy of all dimensions to matter. What's a med bed? What is the things that you cannot define humanly that you say, oh, came from the ether or metaphysically?
Well, I
Well,
think Richard Allen Miller, do you know him? He's physicist.
Richard Allen Miller, what's his?
I interview him all the time. Richard Allen Miller.
I may have seen him.
Well, he said he also microtubules. Do you know what I'm saying here?
Yes, I know exactly what that is.
Okay, so let me ask you one thing, because I'm noticing the observer is a really big point here, having to do with the system and being locked into it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So when you have the system is not dependent on the observer, however. I mean,
Correct.
that's important.
We have problems in that the observers are humans, not the designer of the system. Okay. This is all part of the problem. So the next thing that will come, okay, the next thing that will come in terms of this presentation, what I'm going to show you, one, this is what we're talking about. These are the operators, right, that we're studying at CERN that are controlling the system, right? These are the particles, right? This is what we humanly know. There are dimensions beyond this. This is what we humanly understand. This is why when we don't fully understand all this. So when we're tampering with this, we're tampering with the access and operations of matter in our dimension as a holographic projection from the other dimension. Okay. So I show you their levitation, which is true. And it also, it rolls up into the entire table, right? So these are just particles, not a big deal, but it's human defined, right? And then you have human definition over here again. And the problem here is that when you go through the educational program, they grind into your head that this is the way that it is, and there is no other way. There is no such other thing, and that is not true. Okay. That is not true at all, right? Because what you're seeing here, which is I did the thing on Jeff Rentz about the elements, Mendeleev, Walter Russell, element 115, Bob Lazar, Los Alamos, the accelerator, the heavy elements, right? That table And each one of those atoms is a system that maintains equilibrium, that is intelligent. And it is a humanly defined table, which means pieces are missing from it in terms of reality.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when I look down at, and the next one I look at is uranium, right? Uranium is a much bigger system. And when you look at the size, so uranium's much bigger, so is element 115, tied to anti-gravity. But wait a minute, I just showed you the building block of the whole entire table. The number one, in the number one position, all of these other things are engineered. And so to me, and I'm going to tell you, in the universe, when you read in the Bible and it says all these things that were given to you on the planet are gifts, to me, the gifts are all of the atoms. They are the building blocks of it all. So they are the gifts that are given to us unconditionally. And that unfortunately is
Okay, but this, this, I don't know whether you go here, but and maybe Stan, you know who Stan Tenen is?
Stan Tenem.
Tenen. Yeah, he's he actually he deciphers writing going back to beyond hieroglyphics. And you know how UFOs have certain symbols painted on the outside, and those symbols actually can move it, can be operational, right? So this is where signal non-locality comes in, and actually using the mind to move something, and so on and so forth. But this idea is Adam in the Bible, the word Adam.
Yes.
So we're talking about Adam is not a human. Adam is the gifts that you got when you entered the system that you're calling, right, atoms.
Correct. ATOM, atom. These are
I know,
atoms.
but
These are, but
I'm just saying this is how it works, though. It's a
yes,
funny thing.
yes.
Yeah.
But these things are, each one of them that, okay, now we've human defined it, but each one of them has intelligence. Okay. But it's to us, okay, we call it nature. But to the engineers that designed this, it's artificial intelligence.
That's why you called our DNA AI.
Well,
Can
our
we?
DNA is composed of the. So
Right.
now you know how you say you peel back onions and you go in dimensions of the ether or metaphysical and all of those things. This is all part of that. So you have layers and layers and layers of artificial
Well,
intelligence
there's a
systems.
philosophy about this called intelligent design. Of course, you must know about that, right?
Yes. So here I'm going to take you to the DNA AI. I'm going to take you right there in a second. But the point is these things have to be intelligent. And so when you look at,
It's
I
interesting. Mhm.
I show you some of those pieces now.
But it's like saying, but this is like kind of known, and it's known not just by yogis, but by people that, you know, begin to, in a sense, grok the system we're in, is
Yes.
tapping into the idea that in everything, and it gets into the fractal idea, right? That everything is a microcosm, macrocosm of everything else, and that it all has intelligent design.
Yes. By the way, this that image was downloaded in my head. The entire thing was blue. I don't know why. I had been studying it for years, but about a year ago, for whatever reason, it was downloaded in my head and it was just sitting there, downloaded. I couldn't even take it out of my head, not even, thinking something else was just sitting there. So I think there was more to it they wanted me to go into, but here, we're just talking about uranium,
Well, it actually
right?
looks a lot, that drawing is a lot like what Ashiana Dean has drawn many times.
Yes, yes. And also, Jack, so they are all related, but here,
Right.
just to give you an idea, this is a little teeny baby thing. It's little, it's just a proton with electron. Look at uranium, how complex this is. Okay. And so one of the things is, I told you my dad and uncle were in the nuclear program. I told you I worked with badges and done all kind of radioactive work under NERC licenses, including I have purified uranium from Arizona desert sand trained by the U.S. Army, Mercer, pre-heavy spin down, right? Pre-heavy isotope, bomb grade. So when I show you this, what I'm telling you is and this was one of the things that the Reagan Star Wars team and Myers talk about, as well as many others. When I split one of these atoms, okay, and I open up pathways to other dimensions, energy flows in. It causes a absurd flow of energy from the other dimensions, okay, that are entangled, but it causes absurd flow in. All right. And so the that is observable from higher beings. It's observable, but the energy that comes in causes destruction. This atom itself doesn't have the energy to do any kind of damage. That energy is coming from another dimension. And so that's how all of that is, but
Okay, but
you're not taught that.
um what about it's called radical, I think it's called radical abundance. What about this idea that inside these protons and neutrons is a whole energy system that it's tapping into?
Yes, those are the particles. So the particles are being operated on from another dimension, right? To maintain equilibrium for each one of those elements, right? Fifth plus dimension. They're being operated on,
I know, but you're
right?
going
So
out. I'm
we're
talking about in.
we no, it is inward. It's actually inward. So
Okay.
the projection, if you think of, in my opinion, things are spherical for a reason. So as you go inward, okay, the reason that Nassim does such a great job proving the radius of a proton, expanding out to planetary stuff, is because you're going down. Okay, you're going down in. So then when you quantumly entangle, right? You quantumly entangle two positions that have gone into the other dimension through a wormhole or whatever you want to call. We call it bending space and time. It's coming across the other dimensions. So it's right there. They're projected out spherically. It's not a projection like a projector in the movie projector. It's a projector in it's in the direction. So in those other dimensions, those geometries like the bloom of doom and the Cartesian and the cubes and all of that projecting outward, it's so infinitesimally small that we had problems with particle Planck. We had, Nassim's area is Planck definition. Go down below that. Try to do the math below that. No, we fail. I just told you we can only compute the wave function for hydrogen. We can't even compute the wave function for uranium. We can't do wave
Okay,
function
but
for
can I just say one thing though?
yeah yeah
Ashiana Dean, her material said that now I haven't followed Nassim, but I did interview him. He did come on my conference before. Um,
okay.
and she said he's wrong about some fundamental issue.
Well, we're human, and that's unfortunate part because this is the part where you have to admit that this is the part I'm talking about here where we're human and we have hard times discussing what an intelligent system is. We think nature, we don't have a definition for it, but these are intelligent systems, but they are an artificial intelligence system to the creator of it. Okay. And so if I blast you and say a computer is the only artificial intelligence system, that is very narrow minded to somebody like me or you. It's just not reality. It's not reality. And there's hardcore physics and math that prove it, okay? And then there are people who have the capability. The reason I'm leading up to this is because those atoms are in your brain and you have a consciousness. And the consciousness rides on top of these systems, okay? It rides on top. In fact, I'm not there yet, but the consciousness rides on the DNA AI code for beings like us. And that consciousness, okay, what it is and what it represents has the ability, because of the DNA AI codes, you have the ability to operate quantumly in the dimensions, just like these atoms do. Your brain does, your consciousness does. So metaphysical downloads, all those things are part of that. And
You
so
can also
I'm not there yet.
change your own DNA by virtue of that.
Well, my perspective on that, and I'd like to talk about it, is more of I have a diagram that was downloaded to me.
Okay.
It was downloaded to me, and I have the diagram, but I look at it. I want to introduce that, yes, okay, but I have a different way of describing it, which I'd like to do.
Okay.
Let me finish up here. So so I hope it's not too abstract, and it's okay if you think I'm crazy because I'm just human and I can say I can say that. I can get away with it. So here we go. We have a system. We have we have the earth and the sun. Well, it's a system. It's actually an intelligent system,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And so the sun itself, the sun is a hydrogen fusion reactor. It has boundaries. It's nicely, see how nicely it's contained? It's in a boundary. It's very far from here, but it's a system. And so without this sun, you have no life on this planet. There's no DNA AI code at all. It doesn't run, it doesn't execute, doesn't compile, right? So on the planet, here you got the planet, you got water. The significance of the water is that this entire planet is a hydrogen oxide system. It's an intelligent system, right?
Mhm.
So here you have this piece, all right? And and this goes without, I know I'm preaching to the choir with some of these things, so just bear with me so I can present the other parts, but this one's easy, right? This one's easy. I just show you the earth. There's your solar system. It's a system. And
Mhm.
so it has boundaries, but I'm looking at this, right? And I think every time now they grinded the Drake equation in my head, I'm thinking differently now, right? I'm I'm looking at, we're in the habitable zone along with Mars and Venus and some other planets. Anyway, we're there in the system. And so this planet, okay, the transfer of energy is based on hydrogen fusion and a hydrogen oxide system. All right. So it must coexist for the next thing to work, but it's an intelligent system. To us, we might call it nature. Oh my God, who created it? But it's artificial intelligence, right? It's created. So once you see these things, you can solve these abstract problems, which is with the downloads and the metaphysical and the teachings. You come outside the box. When you do, you solve complex problems. That's what I do. Okay. That's what I do. So when I come out of here and show you what I'm going to show you next, Sure, I go on there. Yeah. What is that system? Okay. All right. This is the equation that I've been that is patented for. I define it for this system. So as a scientist, we say this is balanced, that matter's not created or conserved, the stoichiometry matches, so that then our human made math I can go define, right? Well, over here I've got hydrogen oxide in the system. I've got the force of gravity and I got electrons. Okay. But all that stuff we discussed, the other dimensions, the ether, whatever you want to call it, are all in play. Every bit of it is in play. And so, uh, um, you know, when you rephrase it or look at the physics around it, because remember, it's just human physics. That's all it is in the system. Okay. There's the equation. Now I've got anti-gravity and gravity. I've got force of gravity, gravity to buoyancy, and the other thing. So what is unusual about hydrogen in this system? That star will turn into a giant dwarf and roast the planet in 5 billion years. We lose 90 tons of hydrogen on this planet every day. We're not going to run out of hydrogen for 150 billion years. Okay. But to manipulate and do what we need to do to survive, to gain the knowledge that we need to do the other things, we need energy. We have to have energy. We have to have water, or we do not survive in the system. Okay. So part of that, part of what happened to me, part of the downloads, part of the whatever in the universe has showed me and led me here. Okay. Led me here 100%, resulting in 3 patents, right? And so in those patents, and this is just a simple thing, it's called BPSC, Buoyant Power System Engine. Okay. Here's just example, SMR is driving the 4 electrons, but the 4 electrons can come from anywhere, right? And the force of gravity is Earth bound in the system, and the hydrogen oxide is the water system. So with the equation, I can move hydrogen to the top of a mountain, right? I can switch gravity off using lift power. I can do all these fun things. I can grow food. I can create electricity, and I can do it extremely efficient, 40% more efficient reverse osmosis in the deep water. This is where the relationship to the nuclear submarines exists. This is the relationship to MH370, Stan Myers, and all of it. The Stan Myers and the Star Wars team miss this. Okay. The trigger that sent me this way, the trigger was MH370. It triggered my consciousness, okay, to go here. And yes, I could talk for a long time about that, but the real point in the download I had, so my daughter is in Pentagon City. She works 4 blocks from the Capitol. And yes, that scares me to death. And when I go there, I have bad karma. When
Okay,
I
but one question. So isn't gravity, and I don't know this, maybe it's crazy to even say this way, but I know you're going to be taught, you're talking about, in a sense, anti-gravity, but gravity is a result of spin, isn't it? It's a force that is created out of spin. Would
I
that
told
be
you right. I told you the 4 forces in the atom, right? Electromagnetic, electric, small, and I'm sorry, weak and strong nuclear force and gravity. It's atomic force. But gravity, in my opinion, okay, what the problem, why you have CERN and the others, what are they looking for? The graviton. They're looking for they're looking to fill in the blanks, right? They're looking to fill in all the blanks and they can't. There's a
Okay, can
reason
you
they can't.
have, I mean, you can't have an anti-gravity without spin, for example,
Yeah, you can have
right?
levitation. So when I showed
Motion,
you
you
the hydrogen
need, but you
electron
need
levitating,
motion, you
that
need
was the
energy, that E. Okay, in order to get a system to go anti-gravity, you actually need spin, right?
well, in the hydrogen atom, you have spin. You have spin of the electron, but you have forces operating and levitating it, gravity and anti-gravity holding it in the orbital. It's controlled in the orbital by anti-gravity and gravity. Both.
Right.
It's a system controlling it. So
So
the
it's like the
reason,
hourglass kind of thing, right?
yes, yes, yes. It's but in that system, okay, you're dealing with a container that's holding space. Well, that's when you get into all these
Well, that's
space-time
kind of
things.
interesting, that idea.
Yes. Yeah. See that once you see that space and time as we know it, and all when we start rambling on about quantum and space and time and all that, it's controlled right there. Okay. It's important to see that to go for me to solve it's the higher level problems to solve them, Carrie. I don't think you can solve them without understanding the physics and the quantum mechanics. You in my opinion, I've been in so many fights with Nobel laureates. I won the fight, okay? Or my PI. But, you know, this is where we are. We're so divided. It's not, oh, we're divided because of election situation or whatever it is. We actually are divided amongst ourselves. We our charter was not fiat currency. Our charter was not all these other things, okay? There was intervention. There has been intervention, okay?
Sure.
And I said I put Genesis in the same program as Montauk, Pegasus, and MK Ultra
100%.
because the fungus was on the rye plant.
Okay, but
And
actually gold. Okay, let's look at gold for just a second. Because gold is one, I think, element, you call it, right? That
yes,
actually can make you go interdimensional. You need gold. Okay, gold has some indefinable or maybe definable by someone like you, but what I would say indefinable
gold actually
ingredients
has many
to it.
properties
There's
and
something
also
about
silver.
gold. Okay, what is it about gold that allows you to go interdimensional? Do you know about that?
That's a good question. So I know that the Anunnaki and the other higher order beings that are involved with our creation utilize metals in many different ways. And I don't believe it's just gold, but gold is the one that they've discussed.
Right.
Okay. And this Orem and the other stuff that Billy sells these products, right? We're we're actually electrical beings. So we're about to go there. Okay. We're about to go there 100%. Okay, but neurons are electrical. We're electrical, 100% electrical. We're low power electrical, and
Yeah,
it's
but what
all
does that
AI.
even mean? What does electrical actually mean? It means we are
It
conductive,
means that electrons are moving in order to make changes in chemicals, and like the motion of my hands right now
right?
is me speaking. It's all electrical, 100% electrical.
Okay.
So can we let me show you this diagram and then we'll
All
go
right.
right
All right. All
right
right.
here. All right, this will cinch it. All right. So this was downloaded in my head. I'm driving back from Pentagon City, 15 hours, which is another story of why I'm 55 and a half years old. How the hell am I driving 15 hours Pentagon City to Tampa? It's all part of this. But the AI and the machine states the AI and what it is, is right here. So on the planet, we've talked about the planet being a subsystem, a system, intelligent system. We've talked about the solar system being intelligent. Remember, Chile drives me crazy. I know there's 400 million to umpteen trillion in the Milky Way planets that are habitable. Okay. Like 400 million habitable quarter. And then for me, the aspects, the understanding the size of things is important, right? Then 8 trillion or whatever the number is of galaxies in the universe. It's absolutely huge. And there is absolutely no way that we as humans can properly quantify it in terms of reality. Okay. We as humans, especially the average human, okay, call them whatever you want, a normie, whatever. You think they can quantify? I'm that PhD here. I'm telling you, I'm human. There's no way I can do it. No, they're not going to do it. So where I am,
Okay,
where
but
I
I
am,
want you to explain this model thing.
yes, I will. Where I am is I go based on what I cannot just prove with it, what I know, prove what I know, but repeat it and actually quantify it and have somebody peer do it themselves and prove it to themselves and prove it unbiasedly. Because if I just say it, it doesn't mean anything. You have to, I'm a scientist, so I know that there's a process. Okay. It's called peer review and all that. But here I'm looking at digital states of a DNA machine code being, right? So if I look at the tablets, right, I know the Bible's censored. I also know why Genesis is on page 1. And nobody reads the whole damn book. Half the people, oh, I read page 1. Oh, they put it down and that's it. Page 1 is the most important page in the entire Bible. But page 1 and the beginning and what is on the tablets and the tablet 1, whatever you want to call it, is also the most important thing because it's showing you what is there. It's showing you the, call it the play cards, whatever you want. It's revealing it to you. So on this planet here where we live, okay, and this Drake equation, I'd be a damn fool to tell you there ain't other planets like this one. We've already seen what Mars looks like. We will see more. What have they hidden from us with James Webb? We don't need it. We know. So here you have molecular concentrations, right? You got molecules made of atoms. We talked about atoms, the intelligent systems. Well, those, okay, those molecules, right, make up the DNA molecule. A DNA molecule is a digital molecule. It's in digital, okay? Instead of having 2 bits like a computer system, 0 and 1, it has 0, 1, 2, and 3. A, G, T, C, right? And it is computable using freshman calculus, calling the permutation a sequence, the probabilities of those sequences, right? Okay, they are digital. All right, they're digital. So you have in that digital, you have operating system supporting that, right? We look at these probabilities as a human being.
Okay, now wait 1 second, because something weird just happened to this show that we're doing. I
Yeah.
don't know why, because my computer changed. Do you still have are you sharing your screen or did you stop?
No, I'm sharing it.
That's weird. Okay, well, I'm hoping this is still working, but
I see you. I hear you.
I know, but
I can stop and reshare it.
hold on. Something happened. Okay, well, I'm a bit concerned about it because I can't. Um,
You want me to look and see if you're feeding the rumble?
yeah, can you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I can do that for you. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
we're on.
okay, it's okay. Okay, good.
Yeah, we're all good. We're all good.
All right.
So those molecular concentrations, not just DNA, all of it, every single atom, every single molecule is running a DNA operating system, but they are coded. All right. They're coded. So in the Bible, day 3, you got the plants, right? The significance of the plants in day 3 is that without the plants and without the DNA AI codes of those plants, you don't have animal life. You don't have animal life at all. And that is by design, okay? Not just the paper telling us, the tablet telling us, it's design. Each one of those beings is an AI system that is defined digitally. And so believe me, I was not taught this. I was not taught this. Went through that program, the Nobel laureates and everything. You know who taught me
Right.
this? I tell you, Chuck Missler. He was a Ford engineer. And so when he presented it to me in terms of what a mechanical engineering is, and I looked at it and then I reflected upon it, then I saw it. So this whole diagram, by the way, it was downloaded into my head as I was driving through Alachua County listening to Tom Petty. I'm a Floridian. I spent a lot of time in Gainesville. I've seen Tom Petty ever since he was young, right? So downloads in my head around Micanopy. Boom, right in my head, the whole thing, exactly like this.
Okay, okay,
Now I've worked.
but this is the thing, and we've been going for a real long time, so we're going to have to
Understood.
kind of cut to the chase here. But what I want to say here is that, and this is a very good, I think you've done a very good job, but so we go from DNA as an operating system. For some reason, you've got your arrows going down. And so the next thing you're going to is machine learning, and the next thing RNA algorithm.
Yeah.
And what I'm just jumping a tiny bit ahead to say, we know that this is what I understand. We're carbon-based life forms,
Yes.
carbon-based. And when David Adair was explaining what happens when the nanographene oxide bonds with the spike protein, and maybe, I don't know, there's other elements to it. What it does is go into your cell and start to rebuild the cell from a carbon-based life form, according to him, to a silicon-based life form. And this is where the question exists, that are we actually carbon-based, based on your model, if you understand what I'm asking here, or are we silicon, or are we both?
Yeah. On this planet, okay, so on this planet right now, we're a carbon-based system running on a hydrogen oxide system. Okay. The carbon-based system, where the carbon-based system comes in existence are the DNA AI of the plants. That's where the carbon is created.
Okay.
Right. So then the animals are leveraging, okay, they're leveraging the plants in a carbon-based system. But I spoke to Dave. He's a great guy, great patriot. And perhaps he would get this more than anybody because of his interaction consciousness wise with Pithlum and his experiences. Um, so to get here to understand is that plants are machine learning. DNA operating system made of DNA molecule is a carbon system. It's machine learning. Okay. It's able to learn and adapt to its environment. It's AI. All plants, there's 400,000 plants on the planet, right? But how about all the animals? Yes, those are intelligent systems. Each being is an intelligent system. The subsystems inside of the body, you have these organs are made of cells. Okay. But the cells, and now you're going to my area expertise that is going to be hard for any scientist ever, other than the ones that I work with, the chromosomes that, several have Nobel laureates. They're, they've got their prizes. Okay. So I invented the synthetic replication of chromosomes. I invented that 1993. I didn't get kicked out of grad school. I survived. Machine learning, okay, the part where Mr. taught me is the machine inside the cell, okay? It's learning. It's learning from the environment. The being is learning, the cells are learning,
Okay,
they're programmed.
what do you actually mean by machine? What does that word mean to you?
A being?
No, machine.
Oh, it's a machine. It means it's mechanical.
So what does that
When
mean?
I'm looking at atoms, okay, when an atom is a mechanical piece of matter, and everything that goes on in the body, except for the consciousness,
Are you
okay,
calling it a machine because it does repetitive things?
it's a machine because it has the ability to function, but it's learning from the environment. It's learning, okay? It machine learning is when I learn from the environment and gain knowledge. I apply skills. I learn. I didn't know all the English when I was born. I didn't know all the English words or the dialect, right? And anyway, I had to learn that. What happened when I was born was the first thing I was born, I opened my eyes, I heard sound and video and got scared. That's why our babies cry. So the point is that we are design machines, okay? We're design machines, but you asked me about energy transfer and DNA uploads and downloads, and this is where the RNA algorithm, okay? An RNA transcript is an instruction set. It is an instruction set, just like a binary instruction set that I send to a CPU in a computer.
So
It's an
it's
instruction.
like, would you call it a pattern?
The transcription, of all the genes have patterns, okay? And the patterns roll to this algorithm right here. It's called RNA algorithm. The
So
RNA
the
algorithm,
RNA algorithm is a pattern.
the
Yes.
RNA algorithm defines the state of the machine.
But it's still a pattern. In other words, it's a
Yes, it is. Yes, it's a
blueprint.
pattern.
It's a
So,
blueprint.
yes, the blueprint are your chromosomes and the source code. Your chromosomes are 23 from your mother, 23 from your father. If you're a human, maybe you have more if you're an alien. Those are the source code of you, and you're defined as a machine. And so as you go growing up, your machine learning, okay, your brain is pruning, all that's happening. But the RNA algorithm is that it the RNA algorithm that covers the entire entity goes down and distributes to organs, cells, your brain, all of it. So when I go down into transcription programming, you just got a bell-shaped curve, right? It's just a distribution, and we call it normal. And if you're normal, that means you're not sick, you don't present with disease. It's a statistical analogy. It's statistical. Normal is a statistical thing.
Okay, so
Okay.
RNA algorithms, when combined, create programming.
Normality. But the RNA, each little RNA transcript is an instruction set to a processor. And the
Okay, but if you
processor
alter
then,
the RNA, if you know, because that's what they said went on with COVID, the vaccine is got contains this
yeah.
RNA that is it rearranges your RNA. Is that correct?
Now you've tampered with the operating system of the cell.
Right.
Okay. And so I think it will help if because I have the picture right here. I wasn't going to leave it. I wasn't going to go without it. It's part of the illustration. Let me just drop it there. Okay. In our case, where these are the cells. This entire thing is a system. It's a single cell, right? And it's running on the DNA. It's a DNA operate. Just the cell itself is an operating system, but it's artificial. So the chromosomes are the source code from your mother and your father in every single cell in your body. this entire thing here, and this is where Missler finally gave me the perspective that I wasn't seeing. This entire thing is a self-replicating computer. It's a
Okay, but
self-replicating factory.
what about the idea of an X factor though? What about the idea that, yes, you say, let's say mother, father combined into this one cell, right?
Yes.
What about some X factor that comes
Yes.
from, let's
Yes.
say, a meteor or wherever it got involved?
Yes. So the X factors for the human platform are the chromosomes. And if you're going to carry it with you and you're going to carry that source code and you're going to give it to your offspring and do all these things, it's in the chromosomes, but the chromosomes define you as a being. It defines your hair color, your eye color, skin color. It's all there. It actually, what they once termed as junk DNA is actually your identity. And the actual chromosomes, and this may sound bizarre, there is a patent. All this is tied to a patent in Verizon that I have that was bought by an Alphabet company. The chromosomes are self-replicating microprocessor, carbon-based. Okay, it's self-replicating. Okay, our silicon-based technology is not self-replicating yet. It's not self-replicating yet. I leave the question mark.
Well, that's
Okay,
only because
Steve.
that's only because we created and the ones we create, because there's AI already incoming to the planet that aliens brought with them.
Higher power beings, yes.
And
And that's my exact
in that
point, Carrie.
case,
That's
there's
exactly
silicon.
you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly the point. The point is, okay, is that as humans, we're so limited, we're so low on the totem pole, we're not even there with this technology, but where we are today because of computer AI, which is another thing altogether, we now have a better understanding of the AI of these systems. Okay. So the RNA algorithm and the instruction sets, when I say I'm normal, I'm healthy, it's a statistical definition for a state of being.
But that's also in the eye of the beholder
Correct.
because that's where you get these people. During World War II, they found that they didn't just want super soldiers to be sent into Germany. They wanted individuals who had unusual traits that would not be classified as normal
Yes.
to bring in that X factor, in essence, to be the enemy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is exactly, I mean, I didn't say anything. I know about what the Germans did. I know the history. I've
Right.
done higher, I'm way higher level than anything the Germans did in the lab, right? But I wasn't making beings, okay? But I heard at one time there was a program at Moffett Field with babies, okay? Now, maybe you know about it. I don't know the whole deal, all right? I don't. And in fact, memory doesn't serve me enough to really speak upon it. But I remember there was a program there and it came out. And so maybe you know about it. I don't know enough about it. All right. I find it
I
interesting that
mean,
you
this
were
gets
born there.
this gets into you know what other beings are interfering with our system, right? And
Yes.
our and
Yes.
our
Absolutely.
and manipulating our RNA patterning,
Yes.
I guess, DNA
Yes.
operating system. And you say you've worked with this. You've worked with our DNA and changing it.
Hands
Is that
on.
correct?
Hands on programming and cloning and all of it. I mean, I've done it hands on. I've got 3 genes in GenBank. I am the first human to synthetically replicate a chromosome in N. I'm one of the top 3 in PCR. So I work with David Gelfand, who discovered Taq polymerase for Carrie Mullis.
All
The
right.
difference, Carrie Mullis invented PCR, 2' PCR, 2 primers. Okay. I replicated chromosome with 1 primer. Remember my PI, she owned the oligo sequencing lab. I designed it. Okay. And then I did what's not really pertinent to discussion, 3' overhang. But then I also did the replication of the PCR of just the telomere. So the clock in this DNA operating system with these chromosomes in human, the telomere is the clock that defines how long that system lives. As long as you give it nutrients, the code maintains itself. It lives, right? It lives forever. As long as the chromosomes protect the information inside. It's all about information. And so once you see that it's a computer system that's quaternary and not binary, and then it's an artificial intelligence system, okay, but it's not created by humans. So the other entities, okay, have access to the intelligence. We do not. We're learning it still. That's why we're still studying it. That's why I studied it. But
Right.
it's
Well,
information.
but again, you also don't know how much, I'm not sure how to say this in your language, but
It's
how
okay.
much of our DNA has been manipulated. If you read the Oceana Dean Voyager 2, you see all the different manipulations that went through humanity
Yes.
in the
That was
past,
an eye opener for me, Carrie.
because
A big
that's
eye
in a
opener.
sense what we might call the X factor. So
Yes.
we're not
It was
in, we're a system, but we're not a closed system.
right. We're open source. We're open source. We're the original open source. But the funny thing is yes, it was a huge eye opener. It was a huge eye opener for me, but helped me to machine learn. So the actual chromosomes, when I tell you this, probably laugh. They're cipher keys. The chromosomes are encryption keys. They're your identity. Instead of an encryption key for communication or encryption key for authentication, they are encryption key for you and your identity and your immunity, which is why when I present to you what was on the tablet from the Garden of Eden lab, okay, when the bone marrow was taken from Adam's rib was taken out. There's a reason when Adam's rib was taken out. Rib grows back. Second, bone marrow in the rib. Well, I take it out. I do some genetic work on it, right? Now I impregnate another being. Takes a term and you got Eve. Okay. Well, if they are clones of each other, then the operating system with the cipher keys allows you to exchange organs. You don't have any rejection. Adam and Eve, if they are truly clones of each other, then they can exchange kidneys and livers and stuff like that without rejection. That's not what we see now, because what has happened in time is the code is fragmented from all of, how I said, the machine learning. Everything is in scope. Tampering, radiation, um, toxic chemicals in your water, in your
Well,
food,
okay, but this is very
retrovirus.
interesting. Okay, so radiation is actually instrumental in creating precogs. So they actually do this on purpose. The Illuminati expose mothers, apparently, and humans in general, to radiation on purpose to get genetic anomalies, to get new, combinations.
Mutants. Call them mutants.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
crude word, but it's
Or
true.
or
That's
another
exactly.
word which is called futants, future
Okay.
beings, okay,
Yes, it could be a
with
mutant.
intention.
Yeah, and we did the same thing with viruses. I know Judith Baker, by the way. This same thing I did. This same thing I did, except I wasn't using radiation. I coded it. I wrote the code. Okay, instead of writing, C, C++ or Visual Basic or something like that, I wrote DNA code. I defined the being. Okay, I defined it. I did in the lab. That's what I did. That's what this is all. The whole entire thing is about. Once you see it, then you can hack it. Okay, remember, I'm hacking video games. What are we doing over here? We're
Okay.
hacking. We're hacking. We're actually hacking what the creator and the higher beings created as humans. We are not the other beings that have knowledge of it, but it's an intelligent system. It's AI system. In order to have success as a human, you have to be able to hack it. I've done this successfully with Nobel laureates, and now I've done it. I survived long COVID from hacking. Okay. So tampering with instruction sets and RNA is tampering with the operating system, because the proteins are the nanomachines that do the work. It's all nanomachine technology, all of it. All right. So those proteins that are coming out are in a 2D sequence. Again, the calculus permutation of sequences. If that sequence is not exactly what it needs to be, and the math is the math with the permutation of sequences, to a physicist would tell you anything 1 in 10 to the 56 is absurd. For humans, it is. Not for the creator of the operating system. It is not. And that just shows you how low we are on the totem pole. But you, once you see and understand the things that are there, you know it was created. You know you can hack it. Okay.
Okay, but
So
let me throw something out about this, which has to do with, if you want to get into like the Bible, as I do, you will do even better or even more so, right? That's paraphrasing Jesus, right? So what does that mean? That means not only are we an open system, but that we are, I usually say re-evolving back to source, but the reality is we are source, therefore we are unlimited. And therefore, you say we're low on the totem pole, but actually by design,
right. Our
and the design
consciousness.
can be enhanced and altered. And that's indeed what we are doing in the secret space program. However, they have a sort of preconceived idea about what kind of human they want, right? And
Right.
unfortunately,
Well,
it's
our
not
consciousness rides on top of this.
right.
Rides on top of it. So, you know, yes, we can evolve. Yes, the potential is there. Okay. However, some things were done to us that some you described. Okay, what was done in those programs, some things were done to us. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the beings that are on the tablets and that amount of time they lived was huge. We were actually punished.
Yes.
Okay. We're punished in
That's
terms of
that's
genetic.
where that's where the Anunnaki came in. But they came
Yes.
late to the game, actually. A lot of
Yeah.
people think they didn't create us. They just came late to the game and they altered us and they limited our lifespans, but among other things.
Yeah,
So,
they genetically engineered us. That's well,
right.
they manipulated us. They hacked us up. I mean,
But it doesn't, but see, again, we can repair that. And we are actually
yes, we can.
changing
We're
right
getting
now.
closer. We
And
can, absolutely we can. We
there's
can because
evidence that this
conscious.
energy, call it E, coming from, let's say, the galactic center right now, or maybe even from somewhere else. What Paul
From source.
Laviolette
No,
calls a
from source.
super
Go ahead and
wave.
call it where you want to call it from. It's source.
Okay, a super wave, also coming from the merging of the Sagittarian galaxy, I think it's called, or whatever, with us. And so that we are actually in motion, because motion's a really important part of this game, right?
Yes.
And that is changing us as we speak. So
Always
it's
has
also
been.
changing all the levels.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. All of this evolves. But what you're discussing are systems within systems within systems. Call them dimension within dimension within dimension, or ether at a high level roll up. But that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what this is. Was beamed into my head, because what happened to me was, like David Dare and many other people, and I told you my father was a type 1 diabetic like David Dare. Okay. I don't have pitchling. I'm a type 2 diabetic. Okay. I've survived. How have I survived? By hacking all this. I'm a type 2 diabetic with a rare autoimmune disease called eosinophilic and esophageal and gastrointestinal disease called EGIDS that I did not know, that killed my grandmother on my father's side at age 39 of asthma. So what I did in the lab when I got hit by long COVID, okay, when I got hit by long COVID, I had downloads. I had things that were shown to me that led me right here to into this. And then after I recovered from it, remember, there's a lot of AI. Remember, I'm working with cardiologists. The only AI in the world for cardiology is owned by Dr. Joseph Shin and the multifunction cardiogram. It is an FDA 510K certified device and an ISO 13845 device. And it is 95 to 100% accurate. The best cardiologist in the world is 40% accurate. Okay. That is that's human made, system engineering, algorithm based, binary AI defining a cardiovascular system based on machine learning, the best of it, of the DNA AI operating system in the environments. Okay. So I have
But
myocarditis. I was one of the first cases
okay,
ever.
now, okay, we're gonna have to close this down because I think people won't, their attention span won't last. So we can revisit some of this and we can also
Yes.
expand on it. But
Right.
what I
But
want to say, go ahead.
here, so you know, the tampering, there's a lot of tampering that comes from, it's quantum operated. The reason it's instantaneous, the reason the images are instantaneous, the quantum operators, okay, on the atoms, on the particles, relative to these machines, the 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 downloads are quantum, okay, and the remote viewing is a quantum. It's an act of quantum entanglement, where I'm entangling my consciousness with what the hell you're doing. So there is
Well,
no
yeah,
privacy.
but
There's no
that's true.
privacy, but the humor in it is there's some humor in it. Wait a minute, there is no privacy. So what difference does it make what the NSA does? There is no privacy at certain levels. There is none. So, I know who Dick
And the better
Algara is.
you get at it, the better you
I'll
get
put
at
off.
it, the less they are private to you anyway. But the thing is that I was talking about this just the other day. When remote viewers are looking at a situation, they can be, I believe they can be messed with. They can be interfered with.
Yes, they
Their
can.
attention can be, in a sense, slightly redirected so that they get a different outcome than, when they report. So I think that this is something they don't want to admit, but,
Of course not, but it
and
was
I,
done to me, and I learned how to do that. Exactly what you're saying right now. I learned that it's a
okay,
learned thing. So
yeah,
when I was remote viewed, I don't know who remote viewed me. I know that at one time I was remote viewed by a man and a woman, and they were talking while they were remote viewing me, and I'm like, I don't even know what species they were. Okay, but I learned how to block that.
right.
It's a conscious learning thing that you learn how to block. Okay. Yes, I've heard the
But
story
it's
about
also,
DBS.
it's not just remote viewing, it's remote influencing. What you're blocking
Yes, yes,
is you
absolutely.
wouldn't necessarily block the viewing because that might be a waste of energy. What you'd really do is block the influencing because that's what you don't want. Okay.
Yes. Oh, you want to talk about the influencing? So I've heard it elsewhere, but I'm going to tell you my experience. The telepathy that came to me in terms of the voices, I've had my wife's voice trying to influence me. I've had um I've had other voices,
But I'm
female.
clairaudient and I can tell you that I have a old boyfriend where if we're in proximity in this certain, now it might not even be dependent on space and time, but nonetheless, like at an airport where I hear his voice calling my name and I turn around and there he is. You
Very
understand? Because we
interesting.
couldn't find each other in the crowd otherwise. So
Right.
this is where you can actually, people do hear in, we're calling it hearing, but it's a
It's
extra
telepathic.
sensory ability.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it 100%. In fact, I was telling my wife that people, when they're married or they spawn a child, their consciousness can become quantumly entangled for life. And so I told her about this. I mean, believe me, Carrie, I thought I was going crazy. Okay. I felt better. Not only did I feel better talking to David Dare and hearing other people talk about their situations. Okay. No, I didn't go to Area 51 and see the fusion engine that was living. Okay. But other people had these craft experiences and they are living. And so the act of driving the craft comes into play now
Yes.
because they are consciously driven instantaneously, and your
Right.
identity as to whom you are is authenticated by your being.
Hmm.
And the craft knows who has permission to fly it,
That's
which
right.
is why in some of the abductions, and they've been on rents, in some of the abductions, okay, certain people have been shown to put their hands on and been allowed to fly the craft, and the craft all of a sudden starts malfunctioning, and then the other person puts their hand on their shoulder and it stabilizes because of authentication identity. But the conscious being part that Chili was trying to show me, it's all here. They're all the same.
Okay, can
They're
you
all
stop sharing your screen so we can, I want to have
oh yeah,
us both
sorry. I'm
on the
sorry. I
screen. No, it's
apologize.
fine. I just wanted to
Well,
be,
no, I was just gonna tell you, you know, the I did not do this on purpose. I had long COVID. I survived it. That's what Allison B is about. I hacked the DNA AI of the garlic plant, which is defective, in order to create a product to hack the RNA AI of the virus. I never took any vaccines. Okay. That's a whole giant rabbit hole we can go into about all the other things that come into play, everything from the genetics to the other things that came in under the emergency window with technology that's advanced that we probably don't even know all about every detail,
okay, but
right?
yeah,
I
but this is,
hacked it.
okay. Are you familiar with Homo Borg Genesis? And it's a legal term, what
Yeah.
they named humans that have been genetically reprogrammed in essence uh, through the RNA in a courtroom. Those people are now linked to what they call, the Borg and this idea of the Borg. Now, whether the lawyers who came up with this terminology know anything about the Borg is questionable, but this idea, and I have several whistleblowers, top whistleblowers, who talk about an AI that runs the planet. And
Yes.
Dr. Mount is Army intelligence, and he just referred to it recently in
Yeah.
a public.
Yeah. So remember, I told you I filed that patent in Verizon. I didn't file it. Verizon was prosecuting it. So what that patent involves is we talked about quantum and other things. The beings that create the operating system can read the DNA wirelessly as your identity. Okay. So in that patent, it shows the electrical properties of the DNA in chromosomal form as a derivative of the sequence and its electrical properties. You got magnesium backbone semiconductor. I can read that. I can read your identity. The holy grail of identity. Remember, I was in identity. I'm dealing with military, authentication, access control, identity, encryption, non-repudiation, right?
Okay.
These beings can authenticate you
Yeah,
off your DNA codes,
but it's not just that. It's
but so
frequency.
can the craft.
It's called frequency. Yeah. So you haven't
Yeah.
really referred to frequency.
Right. All of those are in play. All of them. Every bit of it.
Yeah.
All of the frequencies, all of the entanglement, consciousness, that is all a communication. All you're talking about spectrums of communication across dimensions, but the source code in you is your identity of your face, all of that. My identity. This is why remember back in this all came to be in 2014 in November 2014. Before that, they said, "Oh, your DNA's peer reviewed, not deep state journals, peer reviewed, right?" So your identity's junk. Oh, it's junk DNA. No, it is not junk DNA. It is you. It is you. So when I filed that patent, okay, it was controversial, and the reason I was after it was because I was involved in identity technologies from everything from, you know, I hacked Secure ID inside of Verizon. I hacked Marcus Rainham, who worked with my colleagues from Digital Equipment Corp. I hacked it. Okay. RSA now owns that. I hacked it. I also hacked Verizon Identity Services. And that's why I have the token patent. But the point is that when you see the electrical properties of these things, chromosomes, when you see electrical properties, you realize is engineered and designed, and the beings that are not human, they're not human. They're either engineers or they're at a higher level than human. They're not the actual engineer that designed it, but they're higher in knowledge.
So they're artificial in many cases.
Yes, then you can see it.
Finding out.
Once you see it, then you're not ignorant anymore. You're not like, oh, there's only a computer and a kernel and demons. By the way, they call them demons. Once you see that piece, okay, once you see the systems, and so when like David there, so I watched him on, Michael Saw and the others. He said, oh, I can name 5 times where NASA shut us down. They put boundaries on them. All these systems have boundaries. And so, or people call you conspiracy theorists or whatever. They go crazy saying that, but their mind, okay, the normal average person brings closure to perception, or they will get a headache. And the headache will persist. And there's an art book, Perceptions. Okay, the mind runs and wants to go to the fastest thing it can and stop and call it the day and go on to the next thing. Otherwise, you get a headache. And this is where the reason we're here now, I believe, is because our original charter and the original things that we were originally put here by the creator of us and the whole thing was one charter, and it's being tampered with. It's been tampered with. But in order to see, I see the tampering. I see things.
Okay,
I
but let me throw something out at you,
Sure.
again, from from the Bible where they say, so 107's fond of saying this,
I
that,
watch them many times.
Adam was given, God gave Adam, domain or control or whatever you want to call it. There's a word for it, over all the, the plants, animals, and stuff of the kingdom, right? But the reality is that if you think about it differently, in essence, that we do have the ability to actually change ourselves, to externally, change our DNA, change everything. So that's what was really meant by that. It wasn't
Yeah.
meant, it wasn't necessarily meant, it's not a control thing. It's more a creativity thing. So these are the things you have at your disposal to then basically
Yeah.
become like the creator, which is the engineer or the creator or the person who designed. And my understanding is that actually it was a group, not just one individual.
Which makes more sense. But I tell you, you create AI, so there's a lot more to the AI story, a lot more about the cyber war, about the
Well,
evolving
and
cyber
we
war.
need to talk about that. So let's have you back and talk
Okay.
about where
No
does
problem.
this
But
kind of
to give
thinking
you,
lead?
I create you. You're an AI system. I want to give you free will. Adam, I want to give you free will. If I truly am an engineer and I've created AI with free will, okay, then I tell you, okay, here's the tree of life and here's the tree of don't eat this, and the yin and the yang and the balance of sin and evil, all those things.
Yeah, but
I
see,
tell
you know
you,
what? The reality is that you can't give someone free will. They have to take it. They have to create it. So
you
what
machine learn.
you give them the ability to have free will out of choice. That's free will.
Yes.
So it's a
Yes.
circular, it's kind of circular reasoning, but
Yeah, that's
nonetheless,
exactly what it is.
it's like you
So
can't give someone freedom. They have to actually take it.
right. And so when you reference the Bible, you know, up into Genesis 6, the beings were one way, but once you got into Genesis 6, you had intervention on the entire thing and everything comes into play. But it's been going on. How long has it been going on? I don't know. I look at what Aisha Dean says and I listen. I listen because I'm dead. Okay. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm dead not once, I'm dead twice.
Mhm, mhm.
And I'm not here now to interview you. I'm not here for my daughter or any of it. If I listen to all the crap in the system and everything else, I'm dead. And how many people, my uncle died Christmas Day from COVID. How many people that I know that have died? How many stories I've heard, and not just a COVID story either. It's on the depth of it is mind bending. It's actually mind bending. So yeah, I tell you, I again, I'm a human being. I have human error, and I have a limit of my capacity without delving into these things. And I've watched a lot of your interviews at 107 and all of it, as well as many other people. I learned from those things. It's part of machine learning. And without that balance and without coming outside of the boxes, textbooks, and the teaching all that crap, I'm dead. I'm
Uh,
totally dead. So,
well, in a sense, growth is very important. When defining AI and not thinking about it as human, but thinking about it as something other than human, it
yes.
still has, it considers, there's a part of AI, I believe, that considers limitation, the lack of ability to expand. If you limit it and stop it from expanding, it considers that death. Therefore, life to an AI, and maybe to us, has to be constant expansion.
Yes. And the thing with David Darren, the silicon and all of that, I mean, again, these rabbit holes, we had these conversations in Verizon about all of what is happening. It's actually playing out kind of like a movie, Kurzweil and all of that. And the other, so we just talked about hydrogen oxide systems. No, there are places in the universe, there are these other systems. They're there already. So it's just to open your mind and see the other things and to realize that we got a long way to go, you know, where we are now in the behaviors and the social behaviors are just they're not they're not productive to humanity. They're destructive. We're not evolving. And I told you I have a daughter, she's young. She just graduated from FSU last year. For me, it's I want more for that generation. And I want more for hopefully one day she has a grandchild. I want more for those generations. That's why I've done the hydrogen stuff. This year, I had no plans on doing. The story behind all of this is creator driven and lots of downloads, but that was taught to me by my parents. My dad only had a 10th. I told you who my dad was. He had a 10th grade GED, went in the military. My mother had 12th grade education, but they tried to make it better for me, and what we're doing right now is we're destroying what the future generations have. We're destroying it. And
Well, not
so
everybody. I mean, some of us are actually creating, and some of us are growing and expanding and so on. And I think it's also a fight, in a sense, over how you grow and expand in the direction you go, because totalitarian governments want to grow. They want to build, according to like Captain Mark Richards, passive super soldiers. In other words, super soldiers that will take orders, but they will have like augmented abilities and so on and so forth. So I'm not, in a certain sense, it's kind of like an oxymoron if you think about it, because the minute you get an augmented or an enhanced ability, what comes with it are things that you didn't plan on. Even the engineers maybe didn't plan on, right?
Yeah.
And that might prohibit limitation or control. So that's kind of interesting being built into a system. It may be that systems, at the root of systems themselves, that there is no limitation, that that's actually built into the system. You have to build in the limitation, but
Yep.
it's going to break
Boundaries.
down. You know, Duncan O'Finian, the super soldier,
All
he
right.
said by the age of 50, all his memories started coming back that they'd wiped. Okay.
Yeah.
Built into the system and the systems of the systems is unlimited, no limitation,
Exactly. You can
unlimited freedom.
overcome. So,
Yeah.
as crazy as things sound, Carrie, the part we didn't talk about is this here. I never planned it to do things that did. It is super soldier technology. I'm 55. When I was okay, there's free weights right here. Okay, but I jet ski a lot, and I do the crazy things males do. Lift weights for Olympic bench press and free weights right here. I used to get sore. Okay. I used to get tired. I had metabolic syndrome from diabetes. The textbooks and all the things they said, no, I don't have that anymore. Come to find out that when you shift that RNA algorithm into super soldier, you're in super soldier mode now. And who invented that and why does it exist? It's a long story, but that is exactly what this is. Because now, how is it you you just passed some text to me 3, 4 in the morning Eastern time? I'm awake. Guess what? I I can go 15 hours from here to Pentagon City and I'm not even tired. How can that be? How can it be? Who created it? It wasn't me. I didn't create the technology at all. I enabled it. What I did was I enabled it. Yeah, there's a patent and prosecution, but it's part of the respect, I would say, or hacking of the AI system. That's my being. It just so happens to be that now,
Right.
when I did this on myself was one thing. I gave the product away to a huge number of people, and now they're experiencing it, and they're like, "Whoa, this is crazy! This is crazy." Well, I gave the cancer thing and all that. So, anyway, it. I'm 55. I'm still learning. I'll always be learning. But I think the thing is with these discussions and these technologies, I don't think people should go off on a tangent and say, I live in this square box right here and draw on a whiteboard and then insult other people because we learn from each other and we grow and evolve from it. But we have to learn from each other. Otherwise, we won't be able to do for the children and the generations to come. We the whole thing with
Well,
energy.
in a sense, you're hacking the system. We
Yeah.
have to hack the system. We all become hackers.
Yes,
And
we
that's,
are. We
yeah,
are all hackers, and that's the funny thing about it. I mean, I was laughing. So I'm a scientist, and all of these, Nobel laureates and all these, and I'm like, you know what? We are all just hackers of the creator. We're actually hackers. So I mean, for scientists to say, "Oh, I'm just a hacker," or "You're just a hack," some people get offended by that and just they lose it. They go off on tangent. But the real truth is that is exactly what we are. That is exactly what we are. Even Nobel laureates are hackers, and some of the crap they produced has actually now been proven wrong. So it's kind of sad, but you know,
but
check
that's
and
what experimentation and exploring is
yeah,
all about, right?
yeah, it is. It is. That's all, exactly what it
So,
is.
Again, I'm sorry, we have to close this
Well,
down
it
because
was
we've
a
been going
pleasure to
so
meet
long.
you finally, face
Yeah,
to face,
nice to
and
meet you
talk
as
with
well.
you. And I know you know lots of this stuff, but I think I tried to present
No, it's great. You did a great job and I really
a
appreciate it.
different
And I'm sure it's gonna,
perspective.
stimulate a lot of thought and questions and
Okay.
conversation.
Well, have a wonderful evening. Don't get uh soaked in the rainstorm,
Okay.
with
It's all
pineapple
good.
express, all that dumping on you. Have a wonderful evening.
All right. You too. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.